Thank you. Chair Georgia, we are now live on YouTube.
Okay, great. Calling the meeting of the Transportation and Circulation Commission meeting to order. It's 7:02 p.m. on November 3rd, 2021. I would just like to note that all of the commissioners are in attendance. There's also Mike Moran, and Therese is behind the curtain. I want to also point out that there are 2 vacancies on the commission. I'm going to keep repeating this, that if you have any interest in public service, please go to the Transportation Commission website. You can click on the vacancies button on one of the commissioner vacancies, and it'll bring you to the web page that the city has for applying for public service. Okay, so with that, I don't have any changes to the agenda. Does anybody else? Then want somebody move, please, for adoption?
Move to
I
approve.
move to adopt the agenda.
Okay. Second?
Second.
Greg? Okay, Lynn, call the roll call. Vianney?
Present.
Stella?
Present.
Gregory?
Present.
I'm sorry. Lynn?
Present.
Okay. Okay, that's I'm a little out of order there, so sorry. So regarding everybody's here, regarding the adoption of the agenda, if there's no changes, we have somebody move that we adopt the agenda.
I so moved.
Okay, a second.
Second.
Okay, let's try this again. So let's go with Greg, please.
Is this, I'm sorry, is this for attendance or to adopt the agenda? I'm a little confused right now.
That's right. So I'm sorry, I goofed on the roll call. So
Okay.
this is now the adoption of the agenda. There's nobody put forth changes to the agenda. My apologies.
Aye.
So aye. Stella,
Aye.
Vianney,
Aye.
and Lynn.
Aye.
And I'm an aye. So thank you. Sorry for that confusion. All right. Let's start with public comment on items that are not on the agenda. If someone would like to speak about something, please raise the hand and Therese will bring you in. I see. Good. There you are. Hi, Abby.
Hi, good evening, commissioners and staff. I just wanted to reach out and say thank you. I know there's been a lot of work going on in the last few weeks or few months, actually, and I do feel like we're starting to change the dialogue and the language that we're using and starting to see things happening. So I want to acknowledge that and appreciate that. I know the last year, the last 6 months, the last 2 months, you name it, has had challenges, whichever time period you pick. So I wanted to appreciate that and acknowledge that. So thank you. The other thing I wanted to touch on was at a few council meetings ago, Tim Hale from the Contra Costa Transportation Authority spoke, and he talked about funding opportunities associated with local, and I apologize, Mike or someone else probably knows the correct terminology, the local roadways master plan or safety plan. And that if we have a plan like this in place, it qualifies us to apply for money. And that it was indicated that we have a grant to generate this plan, but it's a matter of just getting somebody on board and getting it going. So I just wanted to raise this with the Transcert Commission. I know you have a ton of things, and Mike, you have a ton of things on your plate right now, and I appreciate it because I know it is not easy when everything's coming at you from every direction. But I just wanted to raise this as maybe a time-sensitive thing, that if we can pull the trigger and get a consultant from MTC's list of stable of pre-approved consultants on board to create this plan, we could hand this off to somebody to start work on it, so that we might be positioned to apply for funds in the spring or the summer, whenever the next grant round is. So I just wanted to, I'm guessing it's probably already on somebody's list, but I just wanted to say it out loud, I guess. So anyway, those are my comments.
Mike, can you address that? And can you repeat Tim's name?
Hale,
If you-
Haile.
Yeah,
It's only one
right.
L, right? Yeah.
Yeah.
Hale.
Okay, Mike, do you want to comment on that?
Yes, so we do have the funds for a local roadway safety plan, the grant through the state. We have not put out the RFP, which is when you get state funds, you have to follow these procedures or they're not going to reimburse you, right? They don't just give you the money up front, they have requirements. So the person that will put out that RFP is, well, Monday's council meeting, staff has a action item for the council to allow a contract to hire Cal Engineering and Geology, who has a traffic engineer and some other support staff. And I anticipate they would allow that hiring. And if they do, that is one of the many things on this transportation list, if you will. So I've already talked to this person about it. They're familiar with this process. And, you know, it literally is just a matter of getting an RFP out the door to get that plan started, because then we're picking a consultant and they're doing the work. Although I will say the work they're doing will involve stakeholders and meetings and community involvement and so forth. You know, I look at the list of attendees tonight. I would expect that some of these members tonight would want to be a part of that process, and others as well that have participated in, you know, some of these conversations around the pilot study at Burton Valley and other school things and just transportation in general. So it is a process, and that consultant would be responsible for, you know, leading out, and I'm sure staff would be responsible for providing a forum such as a Trans-Circ meeting or a you know, a neighborhood meeting or whatnot. So stay tuned. But the first item to watch is the council meeting agenda on Monday, on the 8th.
Thanks.
And so you don't think we have any timing risk in terms of applying?
So one thing Director Hale mentioned is the HSIP, a Highway Safety Improvement Program. You know, that funding is tied to having this plan in place. We're not going to meet the April application with this. I'm just going to say it, nor were we going to get any of those funds for any projects we have. I know other cities who literally just decided we're not even going to participate in this LRSP, and they may be changing their tune now as time goes on, but because they're not likely to get any of the grant funds. It doesn't mean don't do it, and it doesn't mean it won't set you up for a better place for other grants as well. And it actually doesn't necessarily mean that we won't get an HSIP fund, but I think if we get it, it's going to be part of a bigger, maybe more of a regional type of grant. And for us to all have our ducks in line is going to be helpful.
Thank you. Thank you, Abby.
Thanks. Bye.
Am I on?
You're live.
Okay, sorry about that. So Jessica Lorden here. Just real quick on the topic of grants. I was wondering, you know, we always say that we don't qualify, and I kind of threw this out a couple of weeks ago in jest about how, well, now that we have our fatality rates, maybe we could qualify for things. But is there something that allows us to do where we could say, hey, look, we clearly have a problem. We clearly have some bad track records going on right now, and maybe that would give us some extra weight in terms of applying for grants?
Good question.
It will. It's unfortunate circumstances, but yes, if you have a fatality, that gets you more points for some grants. It will not get you as many points as being a disadvantaged community for the grants that I'm thinking of, for the ones that we scored very poorly on in recent years. For School Street, for Pleasant Hill Road. We're not likely to overcome that deficit, and you know, it's unfortunate. We're just not. That is the priority that the state has given most of the funding.
Okay, thank you.
Any questions?
It doesn't mean we won't keep applying. We will. We'll
Right.
keep applying, and as circumstances change, maybe they become more favorable for the city.
Right. Lynn?
Yeah, I wondered if anyone has any knowledge, maybe Jessica does, whether or not there's progress in the schools with teaching safe travel.
Yeah, so I am now, I don't know.
Kids, not adults, kids, both. We need both, but I'm talking about kids in the schools.
Right, so I'm now the Lafayette Elementary PTA School Safety Liaison. So I'm supposed to work with PTA, and I'm not totally sure what the role is, and I think they're still trying to figure out exactly how they want me to do that. But part of it is, and it's coming up in the next city council meeting, they're putting together a safety pledge, and it talks about, for both students and drivers, about ped, bike, and vehicle safety and rules of the road and just general good practices. And they're planning to send that out to all of the students, and then as well as their parents, and also the city council is going to try to work to get stuff done on their end.
Question of Jessica. Yeah, is this for the district or is this for one of the schools?
The district.
Good, great. Just what we need.
No,
The school,
Stella?
let me state that the principal at Burton Valley School commented during listening night that there were kids jumping off the roofs, for example, when their parents didn't know what they were doing or probably even where they were. So and she said she would help. So you might be able to elicit the help. Matter of fact, I think you would be from the principal at Burton Valley School.
So this addresses bike, ped, and driver safety. It does not address what I would consider general behavioral stuff, like you shouldn't jump off roofs. That seems pretty self-explanatory. This one-page thing does not address that.
No, but check with her anyway, because
Right. Yeah. We're working on putting through a district. I think it's a district-wide safety pledge that's for students, parents, as well as the community as a whole.
Yeah. Thank you, Jesse, for that. And I was going to ask Stella to talk about that during commissioner updates later in the meeting, unless you want to say something now.
Yeah, I have one comment about the HSIP that I had looked into it about I think it was at the city council where Tim Hale presented and local road safety plan, local, do I get that right? LSRP?
Mhm.
LRSAP, sorry, I get it wrong every time. But that was going to be a prerequisite for applying for future HSIP. And I looked at the HSIP, and the most recent, I think, was cycle 10. I was pleased to see that Moraga actually got a grant for pedestrian safety improvements at various locations in the amount of $230,000. So I think there's hope once we get that LRSP written up.
That's great.
At least I have hope. I have hope that there is hope.
Yes. Thank you. Thank you for sharing.
Can
Lynn?
can we be sure not to use abbreviations? Let's spell it right out say what it is, because there's so many people who have no idea what we're talking about.
Yeah, that was mentioned
Absolutely.
earlier in the comments, local roadways safety plan. Yeah. So thank you for asking that, Lynn. All right, anything else for Jessica? Oh, go ahead.
And just that other part, I don't see what the acronym is, HSIP. Maybe Mike can tell us what that is.
I believe it's Highway Safety Improvement Plan.
Okay. Thank you.
Thanks. All right. Anything else? Thanks a lot, Jessica.
All right. Thank you, guys.
I see no other hands raised at this time.
Okay, thank you. All right, let's move on to old business item A, which is the update on the safety work. Mike, you had a staff report on it, which had some dates we're going to talk about. Do you want to go through that?
Yeah, I mean, this is mostly an update from, the subcommittee members as a standing item. With my staff report is just forcing some urgency to it. right? It's giving us deadlines because the good news is we have been allowed to hire a tool design group. They are experts on things like Vision Zero and safety around schools, and they've done this type of work and recommendations and analysis and so forth. And as we knew, one of the big goals of the subcommittee is not only to review the past plans and to talk to stakeholders and take in just input from the community on, we saw a near miss over here, this is a bad situation, or what can we do here? But then to kind of talk through and walk through these things at the school sites themselves during school commutes, so that we can see examples of these things and really understand what people are getting across to us, right? So a tool has some suggested dates, and really the only input I would put into this is we've had requests, numerous requests really, that we start at Stanley Middle School and Lafayette Elementary, the downtown schools there. We need to get to all the schools and recall that they've added the Mayor White Pony School as well. So it's 6 schools or 7 schools instead of 6. So really, this is a ring the bell moment to say, collate all the data, subcommittee members, that you have, whatever it is. I mean, for some of the schools, it's almost 0 because, well, for example, the White Pony was just added. I don't think that's going to be as important as starting with what we do have. We have a lot of emails and comments and so forth over the last, year really of suggested improvements and concerns near schools. And we want to compile that. We want to have that. And this consultant is going through those plans, and I've provided the information I have from emails and so forth to them as well. But I would like to get, even if it's redundant, the information from subcommittee members, particularly if it came out recently, just to kind of go through. And again, even if it's redundant, I'd rather have something 3 times than miss it. So really the goal of tonight is to set up times where we can do these safety walks, if you will, the walk-arounds around schools and the site visits. And, the suggestions are morning and afternoon commutes. I mean, maybe we'll do one school. Maybe everyone can't make it, both morning and afternoon, for example, but maybe you can make one or the other. But those are the times to do it, just because we're going to see really what's going on around these schools. So these first dates start in 2 weeks, well, a little less than 2 weeks, November 16th and November 18th, if we can do, and I would suggest Stanley and Lafayette Elementary. But the rest of the item is kind of up to you. I will say I'm having Therese go back through and just kind of recompile emails that have been, for example, included with the Burton Valley Elementary pilot study, or a comment on Spring Hill, or anything we got around, School Street. So we're trying to compile them from all areas, but I would task the subcommittee members of doing the same with, what information you have, particularly if it's word of mouth from somebody recently. So with that, I'd like to hear from the commissioners.
So, so the 16th of November, you would have a walk in the morning or in the afternoon? Is that what you're?
Yeah, or possibly both. And I would actually recommend both, the morning and the afternoon, because you're going to get a different dynamic for your morning commute than you're going to get for your afternoon commute.
Yes,
right?
But if we're,
that's kind of the intent.
If we have a quorum, can we still do it?
So if we have a quorum, we can still do it. That wasn't the intent, because then we have to have a formal, agendized, publicized meeting. We want to still invite the public and the stakeholders to this. We want to get the school involved. We want to get the people that have suggested things and inform them and invite them to these meetings, which is why it's key we kind of schedule them so that we can start that process.
Excuse me, Mike.
The intent would be to have subcommittee members, You could have up to 3 commissioners at any one site, at any one walk, and not kick in that requirement for actually holding a trans-circ meeting.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah. Before we go, Stella and then Lynn, but I was going to suggest one of the things we can do is have a doodle poll, because we're going to need to know AM and PM times. And then let's talk through the dates also. But go ahead, Stella, you had your hand up first.
Unmute. Yeah, Mike, I wanted to clarify. So is this is the stakeholder walkthrough, but is Tool also going to do their own observations on a separate day? Or is this a combined effort?
They will do follow-up, but it's somewhat combined. I mean, if you look at the scope of their services, and also it's somewhat combined because we've really been tasked with moving this along quickly, particularly the quick build things. I will say they're definitely going to do some follow-up for midterm and longer things. You know, this walk, the suggestion may come out to have a one-way street somewhere that's currently a two-way street, but that's not going to happen, you know, 4 weeks later. That's going to take some public process and some work through and some estimates and so forth. So, for example, if that's one of the things that comes up, they're going to look at that kind of independently following this time. But what this is intended to do is to spur, we can put some delineators right here at this corner, as well as we can delete the parking and have a wider walkway over here. Whether or not we, you know, and how soon we can implement those things, you know, is obviously going to be varied based on cost, based on time it would actually take to do something, based on construction, you know, variable things.
Okay, yeah, I guess my thought is just I would hope that they'd have some focus time at the sites to really absorb what's going on, because when they're with a stakeholder group, it could be a large group, and I think there'd be you know, less focus on what's actually happening, what the students are doing, what the cars are doing, the parents, etc. So just
I understand that. I think they're going to do that without anybody else there for sure.
Good. Good. Okay.
But I think that's better done actually following listening to the stakeholders, and then they can go back and look specifically for things while they're there, right?
Sure.
So that's the intent is
okay.
I need them to be sponges and collect the information and then do their analysis kind of on their own time, if you will. Okay,
thanks. I have a couple other questions, but maybe go to Lynn and then loop back to me.
Go ahead.
Oh, okay. So if these are, as we're saying, these are the stakeholders site walks. I kind of thought about a hierarchy of attendees in terms of setting the dates for each site. So that's just a recommendation. So I remember Superintendent Whitmore, when we really started this back in maybe March or April at one of the city schools council subcommittee meetings, said he wanted to be at every site meeting. And so I would recommend sending these dates to him to see if we can stake those out on his calendar, should he still want to attend all. And then the second would be the principals, obviously. I think it's really important to have them and that they're available for the date at their site. And then obviously any of the TCC folks. I had a thought for Happy Valley, might be able to see if Gail Taylor would like to come back as a member of the public to share her perspective as a parent, but also what she gathered before she left the commission. And then the PTA, safety committees like Jesse Lorden mentioned, and PTA leadership, if they haven't started a safety committee. All the stakeholders, all the people who've written, who've made public comment, who've filed TARs. And that's, I guess, just what came up in my mind in terms of trying to organize match the dates to the schools.
Yeah, those are good thoughts. Any other thoughts before Lynn?
Yeah, I think that we should set the 16th and the 18th for Stanley, particularly the use of School Street and First Street. And the public is very anxious to get this going, and I think they belong there. These are their kids who are going there. I think they have a right to be there and should be there. combined with Richard Whitmore and the others who want to come. I would like to see all of us there. And somebody ought to have a foghorn and foghorn as they do in sports, and sort of take charge of the group. You're going to need to be able to talk to the group and direct them and tell them when to be quiet and when they can talk amongst themselves and who has questions for the consultant and so on and so on. And but particularly I wanted to know, first of all, I have no idea how we would contact all these people other than signs. I'm very familiar with the use of signs, but other methodologies I'm not so sure, but I'm sure that the school district has means of sending notices out to the parents. I can make the 16th and the 18th. I'll be gone the rest of that month, sort of, I think, for Thanksgiving down in San Diego. How long, question for Mike, how long does it take to get the little flashers on each side of a crosswalk, or the little walkies, you know, are walking back and forth and the yellow lights are flashing and there's letting people know that people are crossing and the cars are not to be moving? How long does it take to get those installed? Because I think we ought to put
About,
them.
well, it's not just time, it's money, it's both. It's 5 to 6 months is what I'm seeing with the supply chain right now. And
Are
you know,
talking
it's
if we ordered, they would take 6 months
Yes.
of ordering time. Then I think we should
maybe
get started.
5 months is what I'm hearing. Well, we also need to fund it. You know, and it's about $40,000 for just a simple crossing, just 2 poles. Yeah, and actually it depends on if I have a power source or if I have to go solar. Most of these are solar because we don't have power sources. So anyway, they vary in cost, but they're expensive. You know, it's about a $40,000 per crossing for a simple one. The crossing we ended up doing at the Pleasant Hill Road near the roundabout at Olympic was closer to $50,000. And it did take several months. That's the latest we've done that one, and we've done for St. Perpetua. That actually came a little quicker than the suppliers told me. We didn't quite get it in for school start, but we were close.
Okay,
Have we
Vianney?
ever thought of raising money amongst the parents?
I'm sorry, Lynn. Lynn.
Yeah.
Is this? I don't think is this part of the walkthroughs? I think.
Yes.
Thank you.
Okay.
Yeah.
So, Vianney, you were raising your hand.
Yes, I thought we were going to do Stanley and Lafayette primary together so that we kill 2 birds with 1 stone.
Well, maybe not. We'll talk about that. I was thinking that it's a fairly large geographic area.
They're
that we might
close,
wanna-
though, and they use
Yeah.
the same.
I
They use the
understand.
same streets, you know.
Well, let's hold on to that thought for a minute. I think, but
Okay.
I hear what you're saying. Okay, so let's go back to, we have a list of dates in the staff report. And I was thinking, similar to what others have said, that we should start with Stanley Middle School and Lafayette Elementary. The first 2 dates are November 16th and 18th. Is there a preference by any of the commissioners to which order to go on? I would suggest that we start with Stanley and then do Lafayette Elementary second.
Okay.
Is there any objections to that? And also I wanted to ask everybody if they knew of, and I'm sure the public will chime in, if there are any school breaks or anything else that we need to be aware of in planning these dates. So
I think I checked that. I think I remember checking it. I can do it again right now. I think it looked okay. But, you know, I would say, I know that we as TCC folks can indicate when we're available, and Stanley first versus Lafayette Elementary first might be driven by when the principals are available. So in other words, if Betsy Belmont at Stanley is only available on the 30th, then, you know, I think we have to ask the school district first is my recommendation. And I would start with Richard Whitmore, because I think he would obviously be able to direct his principals to certain dates or help them rearrange their schedules, perhaps.
Very good point.
Let me,
Lynn?
Yeah, before we do anything, I would recommend that we ask the city council if they would do an emergency measure on Monday and make a request of the police to police. And the reason is what I'm thinking of is the crash we had on St. Mary's when a vehicle stopped and the speeder coming along behind him didn't realize he was going to stop and he just plowed right into the guy. If there had been children in that crosswalk, it would have been a tragic thing. No one was hurt, fortunately, but I think we must require our police department to do the jobs that police departments are set up to do, and they are not doing it. And I think we must, and the persons to make them do it is our city council. They need to make that request, and we need to have speed control.
All right, Lynn, hold on. I appreciate what you're saying, but I think I'd like to focus though on these dates first.
Yeah.
Now,
yeah.
but to your point, we should also make this list of dates available to the police department also. So back to what Stella, you were saying. I understand that Richard might be able to help provide direction to or feedback and or direction. What I think we ought to do is lay out some basic ideas on one school for every date, and use that as a basis for the email to Richard and the other principals, and ask for their feedback on the dates.
Sure.
As a first step. Okay.
Yeah, that sounds good. And I checked the dates on the educational calendar, and they're all school days.
Okay. Okay, great. Because I thought I saw on Wednesdays, I was a little concerned about Wednesdays. In the past, I've heard Wednesday morning commutes are kind of different.
Wednesday morning at Stanley is late, and it's early dismissal, I believe, at all the elementary schools.
Okay, so we'll have to take that in account when we plan the timing on those. So let's pencil in. We'll just call this penciling in, even though I'm using a pen. Let's pencil in. So November 16th. Let's mark that for Stanley. That's okay with everybody?
That's a Wednesday?
That is Tuesday, November 16th.
Shucks, I won't be here.
Well, we'll have other people help cover for you. And I'm going to be talking to you next week as we discussed.
I'll be there in the afternoon.
Well, that's fine. Okay. Yeah. So we're going to try and do morning and evening coverage.
Right.
And so you'll have an opportunity. November 18th. Let's mark that for Lafayette Elementary.
Okay.
All right. Then Tuesday, November 30th is marked as morning only, Mike. Given that, do we want to do anything on November 30th? Or should we, commissioners have any opinions on that?
Which schools?
Well, I haven't said any school names. My question is, should we even consider a date that is only morning? Or we could do a school morning on one day and an afternoon for another, come back in an afternoon.
Sure.
You could. You also could potentially do, for example, the Mayor White Pony School probably on just the morning. They don't have as much dynamic around. They don't have the other schools and the through traffic of commuters and so forth. If there was one school that is going to require less walk around time, it's that one.
Let's do that one then.
Yeah. Yeah, let's do that then. Well, White Pony and hold on a second. Mayor, are they have different times, I would assume. We'll find out.
We'll have to confirm. Yeah,
okay.
Right. I mean, obviously we want to be there. Yeah,
yes,
for drop off.
Let's put them both down for November 30th, and then when we send out the emails, we'll send it to them also and see if that's okay, or it might be out of the blue for them. So
What's the both?
Well, White Pony and Meyer, it's just a separation of the age groups, I think, isn't it?
Yes. It's
Meyer,
like a pre-K, kindergarten, and then an elementary.
So then my understanding is that they have two names for the different, at the one physical location, two names based on the age groupings.
okay, this is all at the Montecito campus.
Yes. Yeah.
Carl, one thing, there's 9 dates here and 7 schools. And so, another suggestion is maybe to consider 2 dates for each school as options.
Okay.
Just to be flexible in case there's constraints on some of the key stakeholders.
Oh, that's great. That's a good point.
Are private school included or not?
Yes.
Such as Bentley? Is it Bentley or?
We hadn't put them we hadn't contacted them, but that was discussed at one of the meetings that we were going to do all of the private schools.
Okay.
Why is this not a gift of public funds?
People, I
So
don't know. People.
let me add in on that. I mean, it was discussed that we would, well, for one, it's not a gift of public funds because anything we do is going to be in the public right away. If it ends up being even on school district property, we'd probably have to have that discussion. Okay. For another, though, I think that the only school you would consider private is that is on the tool list to do these walkarounds is the Mayor White Pony. And the rationale for that was because it's on school district owned land. It's a contractor school, if you will. We did not talk about St. Perpetua or Bentley, for example, as doing these school walkarounds with Tool Design Group. But we have had discussions in general that obviously we don't care where kids go to school. We want them all safe in Lafayette.
Exactly.
Right. So there is that end of that. And there doesn't mean that we won't come up with something that it would be a consistent thing to apply to all schools.
Yes.
Yeah, and to echo that, the discussion about the safety program that was mentioned earlier, and I know Stella, you chimed in on it at the last meeting at this, I think it was the city council meeting, right? The discussion was, they're going to be it's going to go out to all schools. It's going to be phased in, differently, starting with the Lafayette School District and others. But the kids are all part of Lafayette, so we want to educate them and we want to get people's inputs. So, okay. So given what Stella, you just said, do you want to add others? I think we keep the first 2 dates as Stanley or Lafayette, and if they have to flop them.
And if they flip, yeah.
Yeah,
we'll just
see how that goes. Okay.
I agree. One thing I would add though is I think maybe we try to steer away from the Wednesday and Friday just because I think the patterns are going to be different. I think we'll see the most typical on the Tuesday, Thursdays, but we could use the Wednesday or Friday if we have to. And we have 9 dates and 7 schools, so we might have flexibility.
Yeah, I realized that. Yeah. So let me just say this is, I had thought about the order, and I was thinking originally Stanley Middle School and then Lafayette Elementary. And then I was thinking we probably want to do Spring Hill and Acalanes as the next 2 of some range. And then I was thinking, we have to talk about this, Burton Valley and then Happy Valley. And then we have the private schools, St. Perpetua, and we already talked about White Pony as a potential date, but also Bentley. Now, it might be that, but to your point earlier, we have to just reach out to them and see if they have any specific dates that wouldn't work for them. Okay.
Can I just ask one thing about Bentley? I thought that the scope for the contractor proposal did not include that school.
It does not. It does not include Bentley or St. Perpetua.
Yeah.
Should we not do those schools then?
We should not do those schools as part of this. That's not what we're scheduling tonight.
Okay.
It doesn't mean we can't follow up on those schools.
No, that's thank you for the. That's fine. No, that's fine. Okay. Lynn.
Why? I'm back to the gift of public funds again. Did anyone ask Mala about that?
You asked about this in previous meetings, Lynn, and it didn't go anywhere because, you know, to Mike's point, we're
Public
gonna,
schools, I mean, public roads.
well.
Oh,
so-
I'm not so sure. I'm asking if anyone asked Mala. We can guess from now till doomsday, but did anyone actually check with Mala? Because that's what counts.
Well, I tell you what, why don't you write a letter and
I'll call her.
ask?
If I have
Yeah.
permission, I'll call her.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So, but for now, I think, thank you for clarifying, Stella and Mike, that so we'll only consider White Pony and Mare for now in the list. Okay, that makes it more manageable too. Okay. Does anybody have suggestions on the dates matching up to the schools, or should you plug them in based on what I just said?
Yeah.
Thoughts?
No, just go for it.
All right. All right, so we have 16th is Stanley, 18th is Lafayette Elementary. We'll reach out to see whether White Pony can be done on the 30th. Let's skip the Wednesday, December 1st for now, and we use that as a backup date. I will point out that is the date of a TCC meeting. Not that doesn't mean we can't do everything on one day. That's fine. Thursday, December 2nd, then let's pencil in Spring Hill.
You'll send the email, right? With the dates.
We'll work out the mechanism in a minute. So,
Okay.
Carl, one thing.
Yeah.
I'm just thinking maybe since just like Stanley and Lafayette are pretty intertwined, Spring Hill and Acalanes are as well. So maybe having them on two closer together dates. So maybe the 7th and 8th of December.
Could I recommend that maybe that Wednesday would work for Acalanes High School?
December 1st, are you talking about? Or the 8th?
I am, December 1st, and then Spring Hill on the 2nd as proposed. And then you've got that kind of contiguous look at how those schools kind of work together.
Any thoughts on that, Greg? Greg or Stella, any thoughts on those two dates for Acalanes and then Spring Hill?
I don't know. Wednesday.
But let's not, I tell you what, let's not overthink this, because to your point, we need to get some dates down, send it out, and see what the feedback is from the superintendent, and also the, in case of Acalanes High School, there'll be a second superintendent to talk to also.
I think Stella was about to say something.
Yeah, I'm sorry. I don't see
Oh, sorry. No, I mean, I think that's fine. For Acalanes, I don't know. I mean, I guess I'd want to be flexible in terms of a morning or afternoon option, since we might be constraining the date for the stakeholders. That if we can say, well, morning or afternoon on the 16th for Stanley, hopefully one of those will be preferable. So I guess I would recommend just holding on to the one that's, oh, actually, I'm sorry. I might be getting confused. We already have White Pony as morning only. I was thinking Wednesday was a morning only.
No, yeah.
Rewind that.
No, that's okay. We're talking through it. It's okay. Yeah, so let me recap. We'll go down top of the list, Stanley, then Lafayette Elementary, then White Pony. Then we'll put down Acalanes, Spring Hill. Let's skip December 3rd for now, I guess.
Make it a backup.
I mean, yeah, make that a backup and see if we need to. Tuesday, December 7th. I think the next one was going to be either Burton Valley or Happy Valley. So those two dates, those will be the two for those two dates. Burton
or
and
Wednesday,
Happy.
or Wednesday as a backup, since it's unusual for the elementaries.
Okay.
It's a short day.
Is it? Okay.
For them.
So then do you think December 7th will do Burton Valley, if it's okay with them? And December 9th, we do Happy Valley?
Yeah, I think that the Tuesday, Thursdays are the ideal observation days, and then use the Wednesday, the 8th, just to, as a backup available. Yeah.
Okay. All right. So did we miss any schools then? I think we got them, but Mike, do you want to go read back what we were talking about? Just
Sure.
dates?
So you've got Stanley on the 16th, Lafayette Elementary on the 18th, the Mayor White Pony on the 30th, Akalani's on the 1st, Spring Hill on the 2nd, Friday the 3rd is opened as a backup,
Mhm.
and then Burton Valley on the 7th of December. December the 8th is open as a backup, and then Happy Valley on December 9th.
Okay. And one thing I wanted to ask you, Mike, when I was thinking about this was regarding Burton Valley. Are there any of the activities related to the pilot program that we need to be considering? Anything that might affect us walking around on that date or those dates?
Well, I mean, certainly, I mean, we'll have to take into account that we're putting into effect that pilot study with the parking restrictions and the traffic calming features and some, you know, some red paint near the corners to provide better line of sight and not have vehicles parked there and such. That'll just be, you know, shared or pointed out as part of that walk. And then, you know, they're looking at critiquing that and or adding other things, right?
Okay. All right. So those are the dates. Okay, Greg.
Carl, the only suggestion I would have is, Mike, is it possible once these are firmed up that we can notice these as actual meetings so that, you know, in the event 4 or 5 of us do want to attend, is that possible? Or
So I think it's possible. I will have to check the logistics of that. It's difficult. I mean, you'll have a full meeting is my understanding. And I have asked Mala about this in the past, Lynn, which is why we really pushed you to have subcommittees for this very reason and to only have any 3 of you at any one site walk. Because, and now I mean, our meetings, we try and record them. I don't have, you know, I don't have audio visual that's going to work well in the field, particularly if we have a lot of stakeholders there. You know, we're going to have traffic.
Mike,
we're gonna have,
Mike, I'm sorry, Mike,
Yeah.
but can we just say we won't allow more than 3 at any particular walkthrough, okay? We'll have to make sure that we do a doodle poll among the commissioners to make sure that we don't overlap more than that, but there's an opportunity at every school for a morning and an afternoon. And so I don't think, except for, you know, pony. So I don't think that this is, I appreciate you raising that, Greg, but I don't think that that will be a problem. And if there is somebody that shows up at a walkthrough that's extra, well, we can just ask them to not stay. Okay. All right, Stella.
So I was assuming there'd be just one walkthrough per day. So it would be a question of whether it was morning or afternoon based on the availability. Is there going to be actually 2 public walkthroughs?
so I actually recommend, if we can, doing a morning and an afternoon at the same school, or at the very least, I mean, you can cover it with those close schools. Maybe we'll see, maybe, for example, Spring Hill's morning and Akalani's is afternoon, and you get it, and you know, or Lafayette Elementary and Stanley. I'd say we start with at least getting one of those, right? But really the preference is 2, and maybe the preference with, maybe we don't have the stakeholders at both, but we have the consultant is looking at, to your point, Stella, you know, both morning and afternoon, whether or not we have, you know, part of the task force or You know,
Yeah,
one
that
of
was my
those for
question.
sure. Yeah.
Yeah,
No,
I mean,
one of
the
those for sure we want the
consultants
stakeholders at. Right.
Yeah.
Right.
So it will be just
So-
one. Okay.
And also to that point, in scheduling with the schools, superintendents, principals, and so forth, if they can make one or the other, I think we're covered there. You know, we'll be able to get some good input, and they're going to have an idea of what morning and afternoon look like as well already. And maybe that's how we, you know, hone down the stakeholder invite, if you will.
Yeah, that's a good idea.
Lynn, you had your hand up?
Yeah, I'm wondering, is it so difficult to notice a meeting? Why is it so difficult? We've done that before. Why can't we just notice and have our group, and then we'll be a more effective group if we're all in the same place, same page?
Well, I think that what Mike was saying earlier was that the problem with that is that it turns into a full meeting where then you have to go through public comments, and it should be recorded, and all that. So maybe I missed some other details, but the question, the point on it is we don't want a full formal meeting. We're going to be walking around and talking to things and pointing out, getting people's feedback, right?
I think it's going to reduce the effectiveness of the group if we don't have them all there. When the planning commission goes on a walkabout, they take the whole planning commission. When we used to in GPAC, when we wanted to see what needed to be seen, we all went together.
That's a lot of meetings.
So we are recording, meetings like tonight's meeting, right? The full group can rediscuss these. I mean, this will be an ongoing item at your regular scheduled meetings for discussion, right? And for feedback and for updates from the consultant. So it's not like the full group won't have, especially as we go on and we talk about longer, maybe larger term, more expensive changes to facilities around these schools. It's going to come back. But really the purpose of this is to have traffic experts along with committee members and stakeholders pointing out concerns and suggestions. That's really the point of this. It's not to, I mean, the public comment is literally supposed to be in the form of taking turns sharing from the stakeholders, what is directly applicable to the features we're looking at around schools, which is just improving safety in your schools.
Yeah. Thank you, Mike, for that. Okay, so if we don't have any other discussion right now, I'd like to go to public comment. There's one hand raised. I'm sure other people will chime in because I'd like to get all of the attendees' inputs, because I'm sure there's big gaps that we haven't thought about or whatever. So let's, if you're okay, let's go to public comment now.
First speaker is Carol Singer, and she will be followed by David Clarke and then Cheryl M. Promoting Carol now. Welcome, Carol.
Thank you. I live in Silver Springs and I travel Moraga Road maybe 4 or 5 times a day going to my daughters in downtown. There have been signs on Moraga Road for a long time, and they're there today, that southbound is closed until November 24th. I can't believe you are going to look at conditions at Stanley and Lafayette while Moraga Road is still closed southbound. The traffic is awful. Now, to get to my house, I have to go a Campo or Solano and come Hamlin. So does Jonas Hill, all those people. So I turn left a lot of times on those roads, the one that goes School Street. So do a lot of the other traffic. They go all over the place. So how you think you are going to get a study of regular commission, of regular traffic, while Moraga Road is closed southbound? I don't understand. The traffic is awful because people have to turn onto St. Mary's Road. They can't go through, all right? And I hope you don't do Burton Valley at the same time, because that's where everybody has to go out past the community center. So they go Burton Drive and then come down Roar. I picked up my granddaughter at 3 o'clock yesterday at Burton School. The traffic was backed up from Roar to Glenside Drive. Do you know how far that is? That goes past the fire station, past the ball field, went all the way back, and took me 25 minutes to get to the community center. Now, the same thing as Stanley School and Lafayette. The traffic is insane. So why are you studying the school situation while the Moraga Road is still closed? Could you answer me that question? I don't understand.
Okay, thank you. Mike, do you want to get that?
Yeah, so the main line paving on Moraga Road and now most of the driveway conforms have been completed. We're going to have berms, guardrail, and striping. And Carol, your point is a good one. We will make sure that that road is not closed on this day we pick. And we have a little bit of pushing because these are subcontractor add-ons to the road. And you've probably driven the road. You know that it is paved now. The dates are expected to include 100% of the construction items on Moraga Road, but the work is not continuous. As you know, because it wasn't closed, 2 weeks ago, it wasn't closed during the rain, it wasn't closed. So the work is not continuous and we are down to berms, guardrail, striping, miscellaneous things like that.
But if you don't tell people ahead of time, a lot of people I know go to the other end of town and go down Pleasant Hill Road because they know they have to go out that way anyway. As long as people don't know ahead of time that that road's going to be open, you still don't have a normal traffic pattern.
Well, so that's part of the question then. I think some of the walkthrough goals is not really, it's of course traffic involved, but it's also looking for safety improvements, right? So I think that type of observations of the local area wouldn't be so much affected, but
around schools. It's
but
around.
I appreciate your comment, Carol. It's a really good point. But given the timeline that we've got with having given the timeline that we need to produce some results and also have limited time with the tool design group, I don't know that we can push it off.
Yeah.
Well, you could trade schools, do Stanley and Lafayette later. I'd also like to check very carefully about Acalanes High School. My grandkids go there. My grandson thought about 70% of the juniors and seniors do not have 7th period on Tuesday and Thursday. And there's all kinds of little complications about who gets out when and what percentage of students that is.
Okay.
Yeah, I
But you could
appreciate
change Stanley and Lafayette from the 16th and 18th.
Okay.
Yeah, I appreciate, that's loud. I appreciate your comment about Acalanes, Carol, and I have noticed that I don't know what the afternoon schedule is. I do need to look into that, but yes, it varies day by day.
Yeah. So let's do this. Carol, thank you so much for those comments. Let's hear everybody else's comments. They might also have similar feedback or suggestions for rotating dates. And then when we'll come back and talk about it some more. Wait, hold on. Lynn, you had a question?
No, you were looking for comments and I was going to make one.
Well, hold on to your comments. Let's get public comments first, and then we'll hold that thought.
Giorgio, I noticed that Mayor Candell has her hand raised. May I move her to the next speaker, or in case she wanted to make a comment?
Sure.
Thank you. Just one minute. Mayor Candell, I'm promoting you to panelist.
Hi, I didn't mean to jump in line or anything. So I apologize. I want to say that I had a meeting with, it was Carl and Mike and Vice Mayor Geringer this last week. really, really, really encouraging them to think about, whatever quick changes we can get done, especially around Stanley Middle School. And one of the things that was in the downtown congestion study was getting rid of the parking on the north side of School Street. And what that would do, and even just do that temporarily, even with signs, kind of like how City Council passed our resolution to close parking on Marywood for Halloween, just do it temporary signs. The thought would be that would free up the sidewalks for pedestrians, and then all the bikes would be able to bike in that where the parking was. If you look at the row of houses down there, there are actually very few houses that will be impacted, at all. And so it's pretty much an opportunistic time. So really, when you go out and you go look at Stanley Middle School, really think about this. I would also be I would encourage you to think about getting rid of parking on the south side as well, from the school to First Street. And in addition, once again, I think there's only one house that would get affected. And so those are things that the public has been asking me, people have been asking me to that was one of the ideas that they had had a lot of traction. And so when you're out there walking with these guys and with feel free, if you think you can get a resolution on to City Council at their next meeting, which would be right after when you guys meet, feel free to do that if there is consensus. That's all I wanted to say.
Thank you.
Welcome.
Any questions for Mayor Kendall? I do have a question though. So the problem is we're going to be doing this work as really not as a body. So I don't know that we can provide our input to the City Council, but we won't be able to have a formal recommendation.
That's fair. That's fair.
All right. Dan, so Therese, if you want to return Carol and Susan.
The next speaker is David Clarke, followed by Cheryl M. Promoting David now.
And don't forget to depromote. There we go.
Yes.
Hi, sorry, that always takes longer than I think it should. I'm Dave Clarke. I'm
Yes.
the vice chair of the Creeks Committee, but I'm making these comments in my capacity as a Lafayette resident. And I want to be clear right from the get-go. I have some general comments about safety improvements, but I am not a traffic engineer. So I want to make that clear. And I also don't know that this is a triple negative. I don't know that you haven't already considered and rejected what I'm about to say. So if that's the case, I'm not trying to resurrect it. But I attended a meeting recently and sat next to a man from Carmel, Indiana. And we were talking about, I mentioned what had happened with Ashley Diaz here, and we were talking about driving safety around schools. And Carmel, Indiana is a bigger city than we are, but they have adopted a policy of building traffic roundabouts. And they're very pleased with the roundabouts as a means of attempting to, and for the most part, successfully reducing driver speed through neighborhoods. Some ancillary benefits too. They have very few traffic lights in, relatively speaking, in Carmel. And so that expense is vastly reduced. But I wanted to pass that on. And the other thing he said was that in their experience, the roundabouts generally do not take up much more space than a traditional intersection. And again, I'm passing that on. The mayor of Carmel's name is Jim Brainerd, B-R-A-N-A-R-D. And the fellow I was talking to said he'd be glad to make an introduction if somebody in Lafayette would like to speak with him directly. They're actually quite proud about the roundabout, how the roundabouts have turned out, if you will. So I'll toss that out. I mean, I don't know if that's something that you can keep in the back of your minds and think about as you go through some of the observation dates that you've chosen. Would a roundabout make a difference in some of the traffic patterns that you might see on one of those days? That's what I had in mind. So thank you.
Thank you for that. Are there any questions for David?
Yes, I have a comment to make. We don't have to go so far. We can go to Berkeley. They do the same thing. And their streets are very narrow. And they have quite a few roundabouts.
There you go. Okay.
All right. We'll keep. Thank you. We'll keep that in mind when as we do the walkthroughs.
Good.
Thank you.
The next
Cheryl's
speaker.
next.
The next speaker is Cheryl M., followed by Jennifer Paul.
Okay, now I'm gonna go brush my teeth.
Thank you.
And also, Lynn Hedane is in the attendees room, and I've not been able to bring her back as panelist.
Oops.
I'm still trying, so
Okay.
I'm not sure what.
Great.
the
Well,
issue-
Lynn, if you're listening, you have to click, go ahead and let me back in as a panelist. There's something to click that'll come up on your screen and that'll bring you back in as a panelist, but you have to accept the promotion, so to speak.
Okay. In the meantime, let's keep going with Cheryl. Thank you.
Certainly. Welcome, Cheryl. You are here.
Oh, David, it takes a long time to get through that wormhole.
Yes, it does. We can hear you. Thank you.
Oh, thank you. So a couple of years ago, maybe more time much prior to COVID, there was a consensus from the commission at that time to have Adele Groner's plan brought to the, have her present it to you. And it all has to do with Moraga Road, School Street, or not School Street, but in front of Stanley. And I would hope that that would be honored and that she could, she didn't know about this meeting, so I'm kind of speaking on behalf of when we've met many times, that that she could present her ideas that would definitely tie to what you're talking about right now tonight. And then I wanted to second with Carol. I ended up in that nightmare by accident without knowing Moraga Road was closed and then having to make a U-turn. And then meandering my way gradually, and it was a large delay. So I now do what Carol says everybody does, and I go down to Pleasant Hill Road and go up Snake Hill. So if you're wanting to get an accurate assessment of that, I think that would be, her points are really relevant because I experienced that myself, and now I don't go Moraga Road anymore. So the idea that maybe less people would travel is relevant. And then I was at a city council circulation meeting when we were live and present and not record. Adele, I think, was put on a panel, on a committee, a subcommittee with for Lafayette School and Stanley. And so I'm not sure, she has told me that she hasn't been contacted, but if she could be contacted and brought in as part of that subcommittee. It might've been, I'm not sure who was on that committee at that time. Anyways, those are my three things. And thank you very much for all you're doing right now.
Well, Cheryl. So I'll respond to some of those and other people can do that. So first, I did try to reach out to Adele the other day to thank her for all of the documents and information and all of the work she's done separately, volunteer work on this. And so for the record, we're very appreciative of Adele's work. I had asked Mike to forward all of Adele's work to the consultants, and he said that he had done that or was going to do that. So her work is not forgotten. Regarding her wanting to do some subcommittee work, that's all on that's my bad. I had once mentioned to her that I'd like to have her help and involvement, and never followed up with her on that. So that's why she hadn't heard anything. But the fact that she has submitted these documents are helpful and they will be looked at. And so we'll also make sure that she gets invitations to these events.
That'd be perfect. And I'll let her know that. Thank you.
Thank you. The next speakers are Jennifer Paul, followed by Abigail Bateman. I'm promoting Jennifer.
Hi, good evening. I just want to say thank you very much for getting safety in schools back in the forefront. I appreciate that at the Trans-Circ as well as staff and the City Council. One thing I didn't hear that I think is important in terms of stakeholders is just talking with crossing guards and bus drivers, talking to parents and students. I am not suggesting by any means that we should have a large group, but they should be interviewed by the traffic people. That's something that we did in 2013, and they are a wealth of information. Another thing is to look when you're talking to parents and students. I would recommend at the school sites, we involved the teachers and the parent faculty clubs. And we did that, again, not by inviting everyone, but by doing surveys saying, how did you get to, we did a week long, how did you get to school this morning? How would you like to get to school? You know, there's different ways to craft the surveys, but it's giving you valuable information and data that's going to tell you, you know, something you might not see with your own eyes. So I would do that. I also agree with the speaker about Akalani's, having 2 students there right now. The juniors and seniors do get out of school early, actually 3 days a week. They don't typically have a 6th and 7th period. So Wednesdays and Fridays are the longest days to have the full group there. As a stakeholder from the 2013 Safe Route to School, I would just recommend it. Yes, of course, I'd like to be included, but also just for the information. I have some maps, I have some just history, so I'm more than happy to give any of that and pass that along verbally or electronically, however it is. And just last, I hope that action is taken on all these suggestions. And one thing I don't want to see happen is that schools get pitted against each other. I think that the best thing you can do to recommend to the City Council is how much money, like what's the pot? How is it going to be divided? You know, one neighborhood doesn't deserve something more than another. This is lives we're talking about, but it's, you know, the way you present it kind of says a lot. So just look how much money it is, how does it get divided is an important piece to this. Thank you.
Thank you. Any questions?
I have a comment to make.
Okay.
We should go back to the school areas that are the most dangerous to start with, but that's what I would do. That's the way I would prioritize schools' safety.
Thank you, Diani, and thank you, Jennifer. And I did see your emails earlier offering to be involved, and so thank you. And I'm glad that you have that history on 2013. We'll be reaching out.
Thank you.
The next speakers are Abigail Fateman, followed by Local Food Adventures.
Local food adventure. What is that?
Hi, can you hear me now?
Yeah.
Gotcha.
Awesome, thank you. Let's see, I'm gonna share my screen quickly. Can you see my screen?
Yes.
This is Stanley School here, Lafayette Elementary, on the left-hand side of the screen. I have to say, I'm super excited about what Mayor Candell just mentioned earlier. She was talking about removing parking on the north side of School Street, and I just wanted to highlight exactly what that might look like. Here's the Lafayette Moraga Trail. Here's the spur that releases onto School Street for kids to get to Stanley and Lafayette Elementary. The north side of School Street has about 7 houses between the spur and First Street, where there's a fully protected walkway. So removing parking and creating a bike lane would allow for both a sidewalk and a bike lane to get kids to the crosswalk where they can cross to Stanley, as well as to First Street, where they can then safely access Lafayette Elementary. I think this would be a huge improvement. I do think that it should come along with removing the parking, there should be a physical protection provided so that cars don't park there or don't turn around into there, because that is what drivers are going to be tempted to do because that's what they're used to do. So even if there is a no parking sign, what I heard from Mayor Kendall was an invitation from this commission to recommend this to council, and she might make that happen. And it's easy as a resolution. And I don't want to put words in the mayor's mouth, but I have to say, I am very excited to have heard that. I think this is a great idea. This is a quick build that would amazingly improve safety for kids who are already biking and walking in this area, and address issues that potentially at Stanley and Lafayette Elementary. So I would encourage you to consider that, I guess, while you're out on site. And if you can't make a recommendation while you're out on site, make a recommendation some other time, because there are a lot of other people who are going to want to make this recommendation. And maybe if it doesn't go to Trans-Circ for that recommendation, I think other people are going to bring it directly to council for consideration. And it would be great if you guys could weigh in too, and not be hindered by some sort of process that probably we can figure a way around. So my recommendation would be support Mayor Kendall's recommendation to remove parking, as well as add a physical barrier, which will allow for peds and bikes to safely move between two established safe corridors, which is the trail and First Street.
Thank you.
Thank you very much. And I'll
Okay, hold
stop
on.
sharing.
Any
I can leave it out.
questions? No, that's all right. Any questions for Abby?
I would concur. Yes, I do, actually. I would concur, because the sidewalk is extremely narrow to start with. You cannot have two people walking side by side on the sidewalk that we're talking about. It would make a huge difference for safety. Absolutely.
Thank you. Yes, that's something we want to think about.
Yeah.
And I would hope you do more than think. I mean, I'd hope action could happen sooner than later.
Yeah.
And I'm sorry, I'm trying to stop sharing my screen, but I'm now
Yeah,
for some reason magically technologically challenged by this.
No.
Well, let's see if Teresa, if you
I can see if I can
de-promote her.
De-promote her.
Hey.
There you are.
All right, thank
Okay.
you.
Question for Abby.
Sure
Oh,
thing.
okay.
Yeah. Are you thinking about barriers on both sides of the street or just one?
No, we're really just talking, I mean, right now I'm talking about the north side of the street. So there's currently a sidewalk, removing parking and putting a barrier so that protects the cyclists and the pedestrians that are on the sidewalk. The cyclists would not be on the sidewalk. And that would prevent cars from making U-turns or parking or pulling into that space.
A question. Mike, are those lanes wide enough so that we could retain parking for those people who have their homes along there? The lots are very shallow. They've got about 10 feet from the curb to the front door. Are the lanes wide enough so that we could get a bike lane in and the parking at least on one side of the street for them?
No, Lynn, they're not. However, I would also say that's the exact thing we need to look at in sort of layout in the field with tool design group. But they're not. If they were, we would have had it already. We would have had some form of a system where we had a more protected bike lane and parking and a through lane and a sidewalk, so that the goal is to have a dedicated space for pedestrians, a dedicated space for bicyclists, and a separate space for vehicles, right? That's the reason for the recommend to get rid of the parking.
And so we can't do too much engineering right now, but when we're doing this, the walkthroughs, we want to keep in mind what we can get done quickly. It's going to be with a resolution by the city council. We can easily get no parking in quickly, and we'll have to look at the idea of how to get a physical barrier in. But let's not go too deep into it right this second. All right. Any other questions? All right. Thank you.
The next speaker are Local Food Adventures, followed by Jennifer Lieberman.
Food adventure.
Hi, everyone. I'm so sorry. I must be technologically challenged too. Unfortunately, I use Zoom a lot for work. And so it is actually Lauren Herpick, 3382 Moraga Boulevard, not Local Food Ventures, which is my company, but I am speaking as myself tonight. I'm actually sitting here multitasking and working while I listen to you. And I too must say my ears perked up when I heard Mayor Candell talk about the school street idea. This would be a project that would impact every single corner of our neighborhood, because all of our kids come through school street at some time or another if they're in the public school system. So I believe what I heard her saying while I'm multitasking here is from a resolution from you guys to city council. And this is something that can get done. And I would say too, what an honor it would be for not only the students of Stanley, but also to Ashley Diaz's family, to say that at the end of this very tragic school year, at the end of it, there could be a little light at the end of a really hard year for everyone involved. So I would just say, if you could, as you're doing your walkthroughs, and then also just as you're making your priorities over the rest of the on your agendas, I would say this would be a home run, guys. So those are my 2 cents, and I'm going to listen and get back to work. So thank you.
Any questions? Thanks for calling in. Appreciate it.
Thanks, Carl.
The next speaker is Jennifer Lieberman.
Hi, good evening. Jennifer Lieberman, Burton Valley. I too must admit I was multitasking, getting some work done, and my ears perked up when I heard Susan mention the idea of a resolution to remove parking on the north side of School Street and to create a safe way for kids to access from the trail to Stanley, and then for families coming from Lafayette Elementary. I think it's a great idea. And I'm actually trying to share my screen. I'm not sure if I can. Can you enable that?
Yes, let me see. Just a moment, Jennifer.
Okay, great. Because I'd like to show some photos from the archive.
Oh, sorry.
I think that's your screen.
I'm sorry.
Hey, that's Notre Dame.
Yes, I know.
Well, you guys
Beautiful.
do that. What I wanted.
Okay, you hold on just 1 second. We'll let her try and get that fixed. And
Let's see.
we'll give you more time. Don't worry.
Okay.
That's
What
because the roof collapsed.
Sorry.
The images that I wanted to show were Justin let us know that in 2017 there actually was a pilot to remove parking on part of the north side of School Street. And he doesn't have.
Oh, we're missing everyone now. I'm not talking anymore. Oh, we have another picture. Let's see. Did we crash now?
Now hold on, Biani. I think little technical
No,
difficulty.
we've got a problem.
Yeah. So let me just mention one thing. I want to throw out. We are scheduled to have a TCC meeting on November 17th. And I'll talk about that after Jennifer finishes speaking. Okay, so Jennifer, do you want to go through what you want to talk about without a graphic and see if we can understand it?
Yeah, so if I can share a screen, great. If not, what I wanted to say is that Justin provided some images of a pilot that the city did in 2017. He said he had no record of the learnings of the pilot, but he has 4 images. And basically, it looks like parking, I will email these to you. But parking was removed just for a very limited window with traffic cones. And what ended up happening was parents were parking in the no parking zone. So I think this is why we need some K-rails or some kind of a physical barrier to enforce not only the no parking, but also to create a physical barrier to create a safe place for kids to bike. So like Lauren said, it would be a home run if we could do this and be nimble. You know, it's been 56 days since the last person died in Lafayette, and I would really just love to see this. So thank you.
Thank you. Lynn?
Yeah, while we're talking about parents parking in the no parking, where is that no parking area?
So it was a pilot, Lynn.
Yeah.
And the no parking was done from the spur of the Lafayette Moraga Trail up to Paradise Court, where the crosswalk is. I think what Susan's talking about is removing parking all the way down School Street to First Street. And I just wanted to share that for your institutional knowledge. That's what we don't want to repeat.
I wonder if that would be used, since I'm familiar with the entry there. I wonder if the kids would want to cut directly over to the school property. Would they actually travel along the north side of the street? I'm not so sure they would do that.
Oh, they do. The crossing guard directs them there.
Okay, and they do follow, huh?
Oh, yeah.
Okay, I'm thinking of the look of K-Rail and the barriers and the neighborhood and the sensitivity of the people who live there and who are in that area regularly. And I am wondering if there aren't other ways to do that rather than K-Rail.
Sure. Yeah,
there must surely be, because that's pretty ugly stuff. And I don't know that any of us would want that in front of our living room windows. Other kids learn to follow the rules of the road and they drive slow enough there. I think that there would be a way of doing this without putting up K-rail and barriers. The rest of the world does. I think our kids are as smart as they are.
Well, Lynn, actually,
there's gotta be a way of figuring this out.
Was not the result of a child misbehaving. It was a vehicle.
I know.
Struck someone. So that's
I'm sorry. I would like to ask both of you to let's table the engineering part. I understand, Lynn, your comment about the looks are always going to be important to the neighborhood. I think the physical barrier concept is something that really needs to be discussed. I think I had already been thinking about the idea of people doing U-turns and parking in that area. But again, this is the first thought, so let's not get too deep into it, okay? But I would like you to send those photos in. The Justin you were talking about, I think was Justin Horn. Is that what you're, okay.
The other material to create a physical separation you might want to look at is on Condit. When you drive to the mayor's school, there are bollards there. I'm always a fan of protecting life over aesthetics. I value that more than aesthetics, and you may find that more pleasing, Lynn. So you might want to take a look.
I know the neighborhood very well, and I know the school very well. My kids went to Montecito for a while when they were younger. But it's a different atmosphere there. The neighborhood is very different in front of Montecito School from what it is in front of Stanley School and the neighborhood situation that we have there.
Thank you both. Okay, thank you both for the comments on that. Okay, that's okay. But I appreciate those. It's good things to think about as we go forward.
Right.
Any other comments or questions? All right. Thank you, Jennifer, for your time.
The next speaker is Sarah Bruschi.
While we're waiting, may I say something?
Absolutely.
Okay, this is a situation, for example, thinking of the barrier that with the no parking that the parents were violating. Again, this is a matter of enforcement. We're talking about our police department and what they should be doing and what they are not doing.
Yes. Thank you. All right, Sarah, we can see, can we hear you?
Yes, I think so. Can you hear me?
Oh, yes, we
Yeah,
can.
we can see
Okay,
you.
perfect. Thank you so much for having the comments from the public. I have never spoken at a meeting before, so this is new territory for me. But I thought it was important that I get over my shyness and bring up the 3 things that concern my family as we walk to Stanley. We just started there. My boys are twins and they're in 6th grade. So we've been at Lafayette Elementary since kindergarten. And we've walked down School Street the whole time for that. But this is a new timing and a new direction. So we get there all at the same time when we're at Stanley. And we have the same issue when we leave. So people are all coming together and then they're all leaving together around the same about 10 minutes for drop off and for pickup. So we have to be there in those periods of time. And we've identified 3 spots that are the most concerning for us as a family. And those are the Topper School Street curve, where there isn't a divide between the vehicles and the bicyclists and pedestrians. Yep. And we feel that that is the most dangerous spot for us because there are cars that pull through that. It is a shared road space. So it is similar to the roundabout where the bicyclist was hit in the roundabout. And because we and the vehicles are able to use and cross in that space, it is highly dangerous. There are cars that drive through there every day during pickup. They park there. There are no parking signs, but they ignore them, the drivers, and they park there. They're very small, no parking signs. And I do think that some people don't see them and are confused. And I think that others do see them and they just ignore them. So that's the first. The second is we call it the gauntlet. It's the sidewalk between District Lot and the Straight Street parking on School Street. So if the parking were removed, that would actually help us a lot. If not,
I'm sorry, would you repeat that location?
The sidewalk between the district parking lot at Stanley and the Straight Street parking at Stanley. So the sidewalk is in between the 2. Its cars face us. So we call it the gauntlet because we walk between them and parents are idling or not. They're coming in to both sides and it's quite concerning. And the exit lane is also coming in at both sides. People have driven into the exit lane. And then the last thing is to eliminate the 2-car exit lane that goes across the Stanley parking lot. So when you go from the old tennis courts and you're trying to get across the same side as Stanley, there's a multiple collision risk at that across that crosswalk. And so we don't go that direction towards the Paradise Court crosswalk. And the last thing I want to say is how respectful the students have been to us on the trail. And as we navigate the curve and get across the crosswalk at Paradise Court, I have just seen nothing but wonderful behavior out of students. That does not mean I don't see them without their helmets and things like that. It just means they're very respectful to us. So thank you.
I wanted, before we ask for other questions, I want to say thank you for those comments. And those are the kinds of observations that we hope to hear and gather during these meetings. So thank you for that. Are there any questions for Sarah? Lynn?
Yeah, I would like to, if Sarah has the time, I would like to go for a little walk if she could point some of this out. The trail was my project back in 1972. And I care a lot about what happens to the people who use it and who are near it and so on. And it's very hard for me because my kids didn't go to Stanley. They went to Burton, Fairview, it was called at the time. But I would like, if you have time, can I give her my telephone number or should she call the office to get it or how do I?
I have your email, so I can actually reach you by email and I would be happy to do that. And yes, we use the trail. Thank you for making the trail what it is. Yeah. I use the trail probably 3 times a day, at least biking and walking.
Yeah.
It's wonderful.
They were just trying to get the kids to school and we did.
Great. Thank you.
Yeah.
Thank you for those comments. All right, I don't see any other hands raised. Oh wait, last call, other hands, okay. All right, thanks to everybody that just spoke and gave comments, starting with Carol and her very relevant comments. So let's go back and ask, we have these dates. I think it's important. Okay, let me clarify one thing. I said to the mayor earlier, we wouldn't be able to get a resolution to them before the next meeting, and that was incorrect. I was thinking about it. We do have a meeting on the 17th, November 17th. Is that, I think that's, unless I've got that wrong. That would, therefore, if we had some sort of walkthroughs and stuff on the 16th surrounding Stanley, and we felt that we had enough information to agendize it, we could do some sort of a no parking recommendation, a discussion at that meeting. So I want to point that out. Yeah, Lynn?
Yeah, I don't think we should even talk about removing the parking on the north, north, yes, north, on the north side of School Street without having a public hearing in that meeting. It has to be a public.
No, that's what I'm saying. So I'm saying is that would afford us an opportunity to have a public meeting on a no parking resolution. Then if that went through, it could be forwarded to the city council at their 22nd meeting. So I'm saying there is a window where we could get this done.
There's a difference though between a public hearing and just a regular meeting, is what I'm saying.
Okay. Stella?
Yeah, just a couple of thoughts. So that's really tight. And I would want to ask, I guess, Ike for his opinion about whether Toole would have enough time with just having visited that site the day before to give recommendation, because I think we're all hoping that there's a safe systems approach and thought about even the small quick build projects that we can put in. So, I really personally feel like it would be good to have them really think about the site deeply before they, before we just go off and add on this. I'm not saying we put a lot of time between their work and then bring it to a meeting, but the question I guess I have is for Mike, is there any way that maybe Toole has any dates next week when they could start and look at Stanley?
Well, before that, I cannot hold on, Mike. I just also want to say that we also have a meeting scheduled. Well, no, let me be quiet. Go ahead, Mike. Sorry.
Yeah. So it is tight, and even if technically, even if we had a resolution that you crafted on the 17th, theoretically, our staff reports were due 2 days earlier. Now, Carl and I were in a meeting with the mayor recently regarding this item, and we kind of agreed that we could do like a placeholder staff report. And still, what I would add for Toole Design Group is that I would give them this item specifically to either pre-look at ahead of, or I will talk to them about this one before they get there, so that they kind of. And I have the same concern, and that was some of my pushback to, we don't just want to do this. For example, we've already heard, a suggestion perhaps improved on tonight, emphasizing we really should have delineation so that cars don't, so that whether it's signed or not, they can't go over there and park, right? Or wait for their child in a no parking zone that we're supposed to be using as a bike lane. So, and I would want Toole's expertise to look at that in conjunction with anything else that's a quick build they're looking at. But what I can do is preemptively ask them about this one, have them already start looking at it, so that when we do meet, if it ends up we can meet on Tuesday the 16th, they already have some reconnaissance that they've done, so to speak.
Yeah, I mean, I guess just I'm a Stanley parent, and so I'm down there for pickup and drop off. Not so much for pickup because I do that up at the library, but I do see a lot of parents who are driving their child from Moraga Road to Stanley who do the U-turn, and they kind of need that. I mean, don't get me wrong, they need that space to execute that. And so what I'm thinking of is if they're not supposed to, well, they're not supposed to do that in the first place, but if they're definitely not able to do it, what are they going to do next? My thought is they're probably going to go down Topper. It is all I can think of. And so, there's always the consequence, the downstream consequence. And so that's the kind of thing that I would hope that Tool would be thinking hard about with respect to this idea.
And also, one second, Lynn. Also, I point out that my understanding is there's only one city council meeting in December. It's currently on the calendar as the 13th, I think, of December. And we do have a meeting on December 1st. So there is another opportunity. So to your point, there's a lot of factors, including public input and so forth on the subject. But I'm just saying that hey, if we could do something that's quick and it maybe be phased in, let's discuss it as we go. Vianney,
Yes.
Vianney, and then Lynn.
I was wondering, do we really need the tools or whatever it's called to make a decision? I mean, it's only for temporary program. It's not permanent. Can't we just do it as a pilot? A trial?
So we have hired Tool to look at this along with other things, and still ahead, a good point of what are the trade-offs when you do this? What are the other things that you're impacting, and what are the other patterns that you're changing? And the beauty of Tool is they're experts in this area. They're going to have a planner who's more of a Vision Zero oriented. They're going to have a traffic engineer who's going to look at this bigger picture. We have now hired them to do this. They may come up with exactly the same thing that's been recommended, or maybe something modified, or maybe something entirely different. But I believe they're going to come up with something, and whatever it is, it will be safer than what we have now. So,
yeah.
Okay. So
one other thought, one thought just about the timing again is this issue that was raised by a couple people, Carol Singer and Cheryl, about Moraga Road and the construction and the alteration in the traffic pattern. I know you said, Mike, that you could not have the construction happen those days, but they made really good points about people's behaviors and patterns have already changed. And so there's detours and diversions that they're undertaking. So I would really hope that we make the most of this time that we have with these consultants and they see kind of our most common patterns.
no, I get that, but your most common pattern at school is you're still going to have the same number of kids getting to and from school that day, whether the road were closed or not. And certainly Moraga Road has an impact on the commuters and how efficient those drivers to those schools, Lafayette Elementary and Stanley in particular, can get to and from. But the congestion and the turnarounds and the parking and the waiting and all that really is controlled by essentially your school traffic. Nobody is on those roads with the exception of Moraga Road and St. Mary's Road, but nobody's on School and Topper and Avalon and First and that section of Moraga Boulevard if they don't have to be at that time. They're there if they're dropping off or picking up kids, right? So that's the biggest impact.
Okay, I mean, I haven't experienced that because I don't live south of School Street, but so you're saying that parents who are leaving, say, Stanley and Lafayette Elementary, who might be going south on Moraga Road, wouldn't be altering their patterns of behavior? Like that there wouldn't be more people turning left onto St. Mary's or more traffic on St. Mary's?
There absolutely might in that regard. But they're still going to have to circuit through the school drop off, the parking lot, or the adjacent, or the adjacent street to the parking lot, or wherever they drop off, if it's, slightly remote, as you mentioned a little while ago, right? So those patterns are still going to happen for the most part. And I do believe that if the road is not, and I do believe that if the road is not closed, although there are a few that are going to be in the habit of already changing and they don't want to take the risk that it isn't open. But if it's open, most people are still going to drive on it.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah. Again, since I don't experience it, I can't kind of visualize, but I just wanted to ask that because the other folks who do the drive that had brought it up. Thank you.
And I actually would add that if anything, your traffic congestion is going to be worse because of these different patterns. And that just makes it even more difficult to plan for safer around the schools, right? I don't think it's going to change the focus or the need. I think you're going to see both. You're going to see the need. You may see some other things that are even worse that wouldn't regularly happen. So then you've got a kind of a bonus day, if you will.
Okay. Yeah. I mean, I guess I could see that. Yeah. Sometimes congestion slows things down though. And if it's not normally congested and it's a freeway, that's a condition that we also don't want around school. So I don't know, but in any event, thank you for the information about that.
I got a question for Mike. Can't they do the work during the Christmas vacation?
I hope not, Vianney. It's paving work. We want to be done by then. Okay. So we're trying to get done as fast as we can. You may not know this, but contractors are booked. We're getting a sparse crew. We're trying to do this as quickly as we can. It's already a huge inconvenience to the public. We're doing the best we can, and it really honestly is not business as usual. These last 2 years have not been business as usual.
What's just a question?
Lynn, you had a question too?
Yeah, for Stella, but I wanted to ask Mike, can you use your big sign where you say Moraga Road closed beyond this point? Can't you broadcast the fact that the road is now open and please use it? That's one question for Mike.
We can when it's fully opened again. I don't know when that will be, but I hope it's before Christmas vacation.
But for the days that we need them to go that way, to get them away from routes that they normally don't take, can't you put a different message on there that says go this way? Yes?
I can have a conversation with the project manager.
Directing people to use the road so they won't go another way. Anyway, okay. I wanted to ask Stella, you mentioned that people would likely avoid if they were not allowed to. I guess it was a matter of not parking in an area where they should not be parking and they would otherwise go down Topper. Is that what you were saying?
Well, I was just referring to if there's a parent who's coming in to drop off at Stanley a lot of times, and they're coming from Moraga Road, they'll drop off somewhere, not at the main entrance. They might pull over before there. They might drop off in the traffic lane. We've seen pictures of that. They might go there's actually a legitimate pullout right now that the school is having parents use, which takes you in by the music building. So that's the westernmost corner of the campus, and then loop through the district office parking lot. But there are people who will drop their kids off right in the eastbound lane, and then they'll hook a U-turn. And so to do that, I think they might need that space, or they do it when no one's parked. And if we do have barrier, which I think would be a really important part of a bike lane implementation, where will they go? And my thought is, well, they'll possibly go down Topper. Maybe, I don't think they're going to go into the school parking lot, go through the entire queue to exit and then turn left. So that's what I was referring to.
Okay, and what's wrong with their going through Topper? They've done that for decades.
Well, just the issue that we hear about also with Topper is not wide enough for
No, it's-
bi-directional traffic at the volume that happens at those hours, and that there's also pedestrians walking there who have to walk there, who can't get to the trail.
That's right.
Even though it's right there. And so, you know, that I bring it up just because I know there's discussion, or there's a proposal in the Safe Trek report about a one-way circulation path. And so, you know, that's where, like, there's many pieces to the puzzle, perhaps, or many solutions that maybe have to be considered in tandem, possibly.
Yeah.
That's, I wondered. We've never had an accident though.
Oh, Topper is a nightmare.
It's
not there.
pretty hairy.
It's very much of a
It may
nightmare.
be pretty hairy, and I had a close friend who lived there until just recently for many, many years, and we were always very often there too, but we never had an accident. The cars were always very slow and very mindful of the people. Now, maybe they're not anymore, but
Tell you what happened.
Yeah, the cars are really big and wide now, or a lot of them are. The Maxi or XL SUVs, they're big.
It's crazy. It's a nightmare. It's truly it's crazy.
All right. So let's get back. I want to
thank you.
I want to your earlier comment, Lynn, about signs. I had seen Nixle alerts from the Moraga police when the road had been closed or opened or so forth. So instead of reprogramming the signs, that might be another avenue for information, public information.
Maybe add to it.
Yeah. Okay. So any other general thoughts on these dates in the comments that we've heard so far?
Oh, that's good. Let's go for it.
Right. So we had a list of dates down. I think that, and there's a list of stakeholders that need to be reached out to regarding this process. I guess the question is going to be two things. Can we use these dates that we talked about as a draft? Because we're going to have to get input from the superintendents as well as the principals. And I'll have to point out to somebody's comment earlier, there's also vice principals that also can be involved in like some of these walkthroughs. Okay, so my proposal, I don't think we need a formal vote on this, Mike. At least that's not the way it was presented, but we have a list of these dates. We know that we have to email a lot of people about them, get feedback on it. Do you want to give any thoughts on how we're going to get that accomplished? Do you want us to give you a list of all the stakeholders and emails that we've gotten together?
So that is exactly what I would like. And we'll take that in as staff and we will try and get those notifications out. And we will start with this list you just went over. And I think I would only add, I think we heard tonight that, and maybe we did this by luck, but that Wednesday and Friday were actually the best 2 days for the high school because those are the full days. And you had selected a Wednesday. So, you know, maybe it stays there, but there's a Friday and a Wednesday open as kind of your alternate. So keeping that in mind, that if that works for the high school, I would just keep that in mind based on that feedback we heard tonight of those are the full days. You don't have the 7th period for juniors and seniors on the other days. So, yes, Chair DeGiorgio, I would like to receive from all of you your stakeholder list as you know it, and you know, staff has obviously some names as well. And again, redundancy is fine. If 4 of us all have the same names, then we're more assured that we're reaching out to pretty much everybody that has showed interest, had a TAR, affiliated with the school, PTA, so forth. You know, there was a comment earlier talking to crossing guards and such. I know I had a conversation with Commissioner Witherspoon. I know she got a lot of information from a crossing guard at Spring Hill, for example. And because of that, the principal was already able to make some asks of parents to please do this and don't do that. And from what I heard, things improved. So, you know, that was a good comment we heard tonight as well. I think that's part of what we will do with during these walks and follow-ups. So the site walkarounds is really a good, it's a show and tell, right? From the stakeholders and from the commissioners to verify, yeah, this is what we're seeing. It's not everything. We're not going to get everything accomplished there, but I think we'll get to see a lot.
Lynn?
Yeah, Richard Whitmore and the principal at Stanley have the ability to shoot out to all the stakeholders, the parents, that this meeting is taking place if they'd like to come along. And I would make use of that because they have it automatically noticing. You don't have to do anything. They'll do the noticing. You might want to put up some signs, but if you ask the school to notice, they'll do it. That's just their way of communicating.
Yeah, that's a good point, Lynn. Thank you.
Could I ask one more question?
Well, let me respond to that though also. There's also coming up on the November 10th, there's a meeting, Lafayette School District meeting. That may or may not continue to discuss some school safety issues. But to your point, yes, when we send a note out to Mr. Whitmore and Doc Alani's
Nickerson.
Yeah, thank you.
Superintendent Nickerson.
We should ask for their assistance in broadcasting these dates.
Yeah, and I can just say, Mike, I'll send you a list that I've sent to planning in the last couple of, like maybe last month or so, because it also has all of the PTA texts, and in particular, they have a Sunday newsletter, email newsletter they all send out, where they'll take submissions for a little kind of advertisement. And it's another good opportunity to reach parents.
Okay, so let's in terms of timing, let's just agree on. Oh, Stella, I'm sorry, Lynn, you had a question.
Yeah, maybe someone can explain to me, because I don't understand. Every time I mention contacting the police to enforce, there's silence and no one follows through. And I'd like to know why not. We just got through hearing about parents at Stanley who are going in the wrong direction or parking in a no parking or going this way when they should be going that way. Why are the police not being asked to enforce? Over and over and over, we are using engineering solutions to solve enforcement problems, and we should not be doing that.
So to your point, Lynn, I think a lot of people in the community feel that way, and I do too. I think on the other day I was on a meeting with the mayor and Mike, but the chief Albert was on that meeting also. And so I think he's got an increased focus on it, but I don't know, what are the solutions that we can do? Maybe, we have to keep applying pressure to the mayor and vice mayor and keep asking them for enforcement.
I think if they want to be reelected and we want them to inform the police department that this is a priority, I think we have to do that.
I think
they need to understand that this.
Well, I agree, Lynn.
Well, they are obviously not understanding. They're not getting the message. We had never had this problem until just recently.
All right, I will follow up with Mayor Kendall and Teresa tomorrow. And my understanding is that there was increased enforcement. I had heard that from people after the tragedy, that they started seeing more enforcement. Now the question is
momentarily.
That's what I'm saying. The question is whether that is going to be a sustained effort.
No, it's not. No.
Well, it hasn't been. Already it has dissipated.
Yeah.
Well, then what's the suggestion for how to get that
Tell
fixed?
them this is their responsibility. The city council must do that.
Okay, I agree. So I'll reach out to Susan and Teresa tomorrow.
Good.
We'll see.
Thank you.
The question follow up on that is Is enforcement something that Tool would be making any recommendations on as a, like, here's an engineering solution, but we also think to make it effective, it would require this kind of attention enforcement?
I think to that effect, they might, for example, if we do a no parking, but people are able to wait in their cars in the no parking zone, that's not going to be effective. And that's going to require we clean it out or we physically make it so they can't be there, right? It'll be very obvious that they're in the wrong place. Yeah. So, but enforcement is not their focus, obviously.
But it should be ours. It should be ours. It must be ours. And it must be our city council members' responsibility. And if they don't want that responsibility, they shouldn't be in office.
Lynn, you should go talk to them.
I will.
You're very persuasive.
Okay. All right, I hear what you're saying, Lynn, and I appreciate the need. And this is one of the things that we have been thinking about is, and to Stella's point, you make changes to the way that people are used to when traffic flows, and they're going to react certain ways. And one of the things they've been doing is parking in no parking zones. That was raised by one of the speakers tonight, and we've heard this before. So I agree with you, and I'll follow up with the vice mayor tomorrow. And then there's also going to be the next the city council meeting coming up at some point, where we're going to be talking about Vision Zero. And I don't know if that might be an appropriate time to wrap a discussion of enforcement up in that meeting. Okay.
Who's in these meetings? You?
No, I'm talking about the next city council meeting.
Okay.
It's likely to have that.
Okay.
So let's go back. So I think we can wrap this item up pretty quickly though. We've got a preliminary list of his dates. There's a list of stakeholders that we've talked about. The next step is for us to get that information to Mike. So there's certainly, I will work with Vianney on some of the schools. I've got a bunch of the other stuff for myself already. Stella and Greg have theirs. There's a few things that I may ask Lynn for some help on, but I think we should be able to get all that information to you, Mike, by Friday. Is that soon enough, or is that even usable, or should I say Monday? Should I say next Monday?
No, I would say Friday. I would say Therese and I know it's coming in, and we want to be prepared to reach out. I would say, as far as like the superintendents and principals or that, I think we'll put that out tomorrow, right? We want to give them as much notice or information so that we have their chance for feedback, or day swapping, or saying we can't do it at all and you need to do it in whatever another time. I want to, since we've put schools to dates, it's our first attempt. We're not going to have anything different tomorrow, so I'll share that with them.
Okay.
Right.
Okay, that's great. Then so you'll do the initial outreach to the superintendents to get their juices flowing, and then we'll all send information to you by Friday, close of business. And then when the commissioners, if you send, please copy me when you send it to both Mike and to Therese. And I'll do the same thing when I send my stuff out and coordinate with the others. Does that sound good to everybody?
I'm not very clear. We have to send to you our date.
I will talk to you, Vianney, about what you and Dick talked about and who you contacted and the lists that you guys were developing, and we'll flush that out the next day or two. Okay. Any other comments, or is that approach acceptable to everybody? Okay, then I think that's the way we'll go. Of course, if you have comments or thoughts, just send emails and we'll modify as we go. Okay. All right. So let's wrap up this item then. Let's see.
Do we make a motion?
Yeah. I would say we don't need to, but okay. But I appreciate you asking. Let's move on to new business. We still have a bit of talking. Is everybody okay from from a bio standpoint, I don't know how long this next item will take, but I know that there's a lot of meat to talk about, I think. So let's just get started on 6A, and then if we need to, somebody raise their hand. Mike, how do you want to work this?
So, and Stella hopefully is prepared for this. So this is regarding GPAC, and I don't have a planning staff here tonight. Jonathan Fox, who put together the staff report, is out of town actually. Well, if there's a question, I've got a text number I can call, but or I could text. But I think it's pretty clear in the staff report, to review these things. And honestly, I'm hoping Stella can clarify, because she's been a participant in this process. And there's more to come, I would add, right, Stella? I mean, there's a few things that we're going to want Transcert to participate on. But this is more, the first push is the housing element. So a lot of the discussions are around a housing element. At this first part of this, I'm going to say 4 to 5 year process, right? So this is going to be, the first portions of things. Well, the first thing was actually you guys already submitted a letter to GPAC, right, from the commission. So this is your second opportunity to interact regarding the general plan, advisory committee, and the process for updating the general plan. Is that a good enough launch, Stella?
Yeah, I think so. I was just looking at participants, and I don't see one of the GPAC subcommittee members who are on the mission statement. So it'll probably be me winging that one. So I guess, let's see how to segue. Well, the general plan update is going in a certain order. And the housing element is first, but there will be all of these other chapters. Circulation is one of them that will be focused on later. Each of those has got this concept of goals, policies, and programs. And so for the current chapter, the housing element, the GPAC had reviewed goals, and that is one of the attachments to the staff report. And so I don't know if people have this handy, or if I should share screen, or
it might be helpful if you share screen.
Okay, then I can do that. Let me see if I can do it correctly. Bear with me.
Okay.
What do you see?
Do
Do you see something that's moving?
Oh, yes.
Yeah.
Okay.
I have a suggestion for you, Stella. If you hit F11, if you're on a Windows machine, that'll make it full screen. It might be.
Is it tiny right now?
No, but I can see all of your tabs on your browser. So.
Oh,
okay. Well, I don't know about that because I have a Mac.
Okay.
Well, I do that. Does it change?
Yeah, there you go.
Is that better?
No. Okay.
You still the tabs.
That's not the goals, it's the evaluation criteria.
That's fine. You're good. You're good, Stella.
Yeah.
I'm sorry.
So yeah, I'm not. Let me just see if I can do one thing.
Try for the goals.
It says enter full screen on that. Yeah.
It says the goals were approved, however, already in October 13th.
Now, what does that do? Just in terms of the screen share, what do you do? You see what you should see, or
it's smaller? So just do what you were originally doing. And I'm sorry, let's not hold you up any.
Okay, no, it's okay. It's okay. I just haven't.
Yeah, we can read it.
May I say something? I think even though they have asked that we comment on other things and that the goals have already been approved on October 13th, I still think we should comment on them. I don't think we should withhold comment if we have some, and I have some.
Well, I'm sure that we could submit that to to GPAC just for their information, but the committee did vote on these housing element goals. And so as I'm aware, these are what they are.
Stella, question. Was it a committee that voted, or was it the whole GPAC that voted? I served on the first GPAC, or the one that you just finished for 10 years. And we had a very thorough going with the group. We voted on everything. The whole group would vote
It was
on everything. Did the whole GPAC vote?
Yes.
I see. Okay.
Sorry for Stella, so let's keep going.
No worries, no worries. So the housing element goals were approved by GPAC on October 13, 2021. And I don't know if you can see all of them here, but they're obviously primarily related to housing. The first one does talk about infrastructure and funding mechanisms that support the demands of current and future residents, housing, commercial, and retail development. And some of the idea for that one was thinking about if you're going to expand the number of housing units and the population, that you need to concurrently develop your infrastructure to support it. So that definitely has an overlap with our domain in circulation, although it also involves things like sewer and storm drain and things that Mike deals with all the time. So the goals are here for an element, and then GPAC is asked to review programs next. So the hierarchy is policies, programs, but we're presented with the programs that fit into these goals. And what GPAC is hoping is that the various commissions will give input on those programs. And there's a schedule for it, which was in this packet, where the goals are rather, hold on 1 minute. The goals are grouped. Bear with me for a minute. I want to make sure I'm saying the right thing.
And while you're aligning that, just for people that are listening in, these materials were in the agenda packet online for the Transportation Commission. If you need to look at these, I'll just point that out. Okay, keep going.
Yeah, thank you.
And Chair Giorgio and Stella, if I could interrupt one real quickly, because this goes to Lynn's comment about providing comments. I did get a text from a staff member informing me that these goals are draft until they're officially approved by our city council. So just so you know that. Okay, so in essence, they haven't been adopted, right?
Oh, okay, thank you. That's actually really good clarification. Okay, so then it's probably more of an iterative approach.
They have not been adopted or have been?
Not by city council.
Okay.
Okay, so the programs were grouped into kind of categories. And so there will be this cycle where the planners will present to GPAC the programs within each of these categories, in each of these groups. And then we'll go away for a week or two, speak with our commissions or committees about that, and then return to GPAC with feedback. And so right now, the idea is that we would do this for groups that are kind of most related to Transcirc. And so I believe right now, the idea is that would be this group 2, infrastructure, sustainability, special populations. And that's not something that we have on our plate today. I cannot remember the dates that I had sent you, Mike, but the date that GPAC would like our feedback on that is not until December 6th. And so at some meeting between, I suppose it would be our November 17 meeting, we would have this on the agenda to look at the programs that fall into that grouping. And what we would do is evaluate them against criteria. And let me see if I pull the criteria up. So the criteria were defined also at a GPAC meeting and approved by GPAC. There's 9 of them. And essentially it's reviewing those programs and then moving through that criteria kind of in a checklist format, but then also providing any input or feedback about the programs. Does anyone have any questions about that? It's kind of a
yeah. So let's see if we can clarify that, just to make sure I'm understanding this. So for the group 2 topics that were infrastructure, I had circled before you talked about infrastructure and special populations, for example. So then we're gonna go through and we're gonna talk about those topics in the light of those criteria you just mentioned, right? So
that's right.
So then we would say, okay, for example, infrastructure, let's talk about things in infrastructure that are part of the housing elements, but there are things that are important to us as a Transportation and Circulation Commission. Is that the right way to think about it?
That is. And currently GPAC has not seen the programs within that group 2 infrastructure. We would see them on the 16th of November. And so then we would have to figure out the meeting that TransCirc would look at them and talk about them.
Let's say that again in terms of what is our deadlines for talking about it.
So the planners, the project managers for the general plan will be presenting programs in these groupings to GPAC in several meetings. And so the meeting where GPAC will first find out what these infrastructure programs are is not until November 16.
Gotcha. Okay.
And so then there would be this time period for both GPAC members and members of the public and commissions and committees to give feedback about those. And as it is right now, I believe the goal is to get the comments collected by the 6th of December. So we would just have to find a meeting in between the 16th of November and the 6th of December to go through those programs and provide comment.
Okay. So, well, I think so. Is that something, Mike, that you're going to help schedule, in our meetings?
Yes, I mean, planning or Stella or both, our GPAC contacts, we'll have to kind of confirm, yes, we're on track for, November 16th. I think, for example, we have a regularly scheduled meeting December 1st. I'm guessing on the date a little bit. I think it's December 1st.
That's right.
So, for example, that would fall within that time frame if everything works, and that's when it could be discussed, right? But we'd need to be prepared to. We'd have to have the information and be prepared to, take action or make comment, literally at that meeting or immediately following that meeting, as the action,
Yeah, that'd be 2 weeks after the materials released. Essentially. Okay.
Yeah. And there may be some adjustment because the current plan, the GPAC meeting will be tentatively December 14, which is what drives the December 6th deadline. They may shift that a little bit.
Okay. Let's just take a pause for a second. Do any other commissioners have questions for Stella or Mike, kind of about this process that we're going to see? We're going to get information from GPAC, and then we're going to consider it and then give them back our our thoughts on those matters. Dates are still to be determined, but outlined in the document that we've just looked at. Any other any questions on that? We're good so far? All right, Scylla, then keep going.
Okay. Let me just, sorry, I'm just trying to see. Well, I guess, let me just, I can't see the participants right now with the view that I have. So let me just put out there, if any of the subcommittee members are present from GPAC's mission statement subcommittee, maybe raise your hand and then Therese can bring you into the meeting if you're here to present this item. Otherwise, I will start.
I'm looking at the list and there's no hands raised. So.
Okay. Okay. One of them was tentatively going to come, but he had a conflict, and so we weren't sure if he would have a substitute. But that's fine. I can. I think I can wing it. So another project that GPAC has been working on concurrently with the housing element is the mission statement and possibly revision to it. This was something that was directed by City Council back in December of 2020 to GPAC to gather public information or public input, to conduct a public participation process, to gather community input. So residents, business owners, people that work in the city, about what their thoughts are, what their vision is for the city, how they view the city. And so it started with a community survey that was in the summertime. July was when it was out the street. And then after it closed, I think they got about 680 or so responses. And they crafted a first draft of a statement with basically a vision and a mission component, as well as some guiding principles or values. And then they had a survey in September of anyone who knew about the survey, about the draft, and gathered more information about kind of a read on what people thought of it. And most recently in October, late October, the subcommittee presented their, I guess it would be their second version of the mission statement that incorporated public response, public comment. And now we're at a stage where GPAC members have reviewed the second draft and given comment, and it's out there for the public to also engage, as well as the commissions and committees. And the target is to bring this comment back to the next GPAC meeting, where currently the plan is to propose a mission statement for adoption by GPAC, which would then be referred to City Council for their review and deliberation. So the launching pad was the current mission statement, which I think probably most of us are familiar with. 3 sentences, very concise. And I won't read it here, but there it is. And I will now move to the current draft, which, tell me if I shrink this, is that easier to see? I'm sorry, I really don't know how it looks to you guys.
I'm looking at it on my laptop. I can see everything.
Okay, you can see the title and then the 3 sections. Okay,
Yeah, just like
so,
that.
Okay, very good. So yeah, the subcommittee basically took all of the feedback. A lot of it was about attributes and vision, what was important to the community, and placed it in 3 areas. One was the vision or the desired future, the mission, which is how do we get there, and then guiding principles, guiding values, which had to do with policy making and direction. And this is what they come up with, and this is what they want feedback on. So the objective would be that I would listen carefully to everything that you say and then compile it and present it to GPAC and to the subcommittee.
Okay. Lynn?
And my goal, just briefly, sorry, would be that I think it's okay if I compile it and send it to the subcommittee as soon as possible. So words not present it to them at the full GPAC meeting in November.
Still, I guess I have a question about process. I mean, are you looking to the commission to comment on behalf of the commission? I mean, we're not here to comment in our personal capacity on this, correct?
Yeah, that's right. If you wanted to do that, you're more than welcome to through contacting. Yeah, sorry, I don't have it handy, but there's an email. I think it's generalplan@lovelafayette.org. And that's an open mailbox for public comment.
Yeah, that's a really good point, Greg. So I guess the question is, let's start talking. Are there elements in the current draft vision and mission statement that as commissioners, we think are either that we might want to modify or add, with regards to housing, with regards to our feelings on traffic and circulation? Is that the right way to think about it, Stella?
Yeah, I think so. And this is not pertaining just to housing. So this is just the overall city mission statement, vision and mission statement. So yeah, I guess I would say all kinds of feedback is helpful. And I don't really know if this is something where we want to come up with a motion or more just kind of maybe, I don't know, consensus about some thoughts, because I think some of it could just be if you have questions about if some things aren't clear and I don't even know the answer or can't interpret it. And that's feedback I think that the subcommittee would want.
Yeah. Lynn?
Yeah, I worked out some recommendations this afternoon as I was reading this. And I'd like to mention the one on vision, and I've got another couple of recommendations for the mission. And then as we go on down the guiding principles, I have a few here and there on those. May I read them?
Sure.
Okay, where it says vision, for example, the text that exists is Lafayette is uniquely livable community for people of all ages within the busy Bay Area. It is a welcoming, family-friendly city for residents, workers, and visitors. And I suggest adding, and I have it in black and red, so the red are the recommendations. Nestled within the beauty of nearby open spaces, hills, and ridge lines with parks and creeks throughout. And then for the mission, I have here in black, which is existing, engaged residents, community groups, and business owners volunteer and work together. And I changed it slightly to read amongst themselves or with our city government to make Lafayette not only a superb place, and I think the growing up comes first, not only a superb place, that's a change in the descriptive term, in which to grow up, but in which to live, work, or play. And then I have the guiding principles. I don't know if you want me to mention those right now, or do you want me to wait? I can do either one.
I think, yeah, if you could just continue, that's great.
You want me to continue? Okay.
Yeah.
In black, which was existing, guiding principles, decision making. Okay. The first one was value everyone. I left that. Prioritize lifelong education. I left that. I put periods after them, however. Maintain a balance of environmental sustainability and sufficient infrastructure. That was okay. It needed a period. That's all. Protect and preserve. And I struck out the natural because it doesn't fit there. protect and preserve our legacy of, and I added beautiful hillsides and ridge lines. And then I went on with what was there, open spaces and creeks. The next one, support a vibrant commercial core while enhancing the quality and character of our distinct residential. And I added in red, single family residential and multifamily residential neighborhoods. In other words, specifying that we have two types. That we prefer two types anyway, whether it's going to be legally possible, it's going to be something else again over time. The next one, maintain a fiscally responsible and transparent city government that encourages, and I put intensive involvement on boards and commissions, because it sounds just a little too iffy to just say encourages involvement on boards and commissions. It changes the consistency, I think.
I'm sorry, Lynn, can you repeat the last bullet, what you were saying on your
Last bullet, maintain a fiscally responsible and transparent city government that encourages, and what I just added, intensive involvement on boards and commissions. I have it all typed out and I can send you copies too if you want. And then for the goals, and I have those slightly revised also. Do you want me to go with those?
What goals are you talking about?
They're goals. The next section was goals. Do you want me to mention the housing element goals?
Lynn, for the staff report, the recommendation is that we just receive and file the goals, policies, and programs. And so I guess I suggest maybe, sorry, I was just going to say, I suggest you send those as personal public comment to the GPAC.
I would have the whole group do it. I don't think it should just be me. I think we have every right to comment if we want to. You might want to hear at least what I'm recommending and then decide whether or not you want to support.
Well, before we do that, before we go to that, I want to still stick on this page, because I had a question for Stella, one of the things, and I'm trying to say that vision, and of course, vision and mission are kind of bigger picture, right? And guiding principles are how you get them done. But what I was trying to understand, I didn't really research this enough, but when I think about the change that we're going to talk about probably on the circulation portion, a lot of it's going to be what Vision Zero, right? And I didn't know if there's a way to include a reference to Vision Zero, like treating all modalities equally, right? Or emphasize, or maybe that's not true, but do you have any thoughts on, is there a way to include a Vision Zero type of input on this page?
It's a really good point. Yeah, I mean, it seems like something like that would fit into guiding principles or guiding values, something a bit more specific than value everyone, which is more of a diversity inclusion concept. Yeah, I have a question, I guess, Mike, when we come to the circulation element, what form will it take? Because I read the current one and it's a lot of level of service, really heavy level of service focus. And I somehow think that that's probably not the contemporary style.
Right, it won't be level of service. It will be vehicle miles traveled, VMT. Which focuses on offsetting things, right? It focuses on minimizing vehicle miles driven. So for example, if you have development near public transit and a lot of your, say it's multifamily housing and a lot of your residents will take transit, it's got a low VMT, as opposed to if those same residents drove from there to, San Francisco or the South Bay or whatever for their work, and that would drive that up. So yeah, it won't be level of service. It'll be VMT, vehicle miles traveled.
Yeah, that is something that I had read about. And it just currently it goes into a lot of detail about individual roads and their level of service. And so I was just trying to get an idea of what the content will be. I know that the planners will bring that up when we get to that point, but I was just thinking about it in the context of how to incorporate something like a Vision Zero concept. That's something also that I guess we need to defer to City Council on, because they're the ones that are ultimately going to be setting that policy.
So that policy will be set, but if it is set, I mean, you know, Vision Zero works hand in hand to offset vehicle miles traveled, right? There's an encouragement to travel less, at least in single occupied vehicles. So, you know, and make it safer and friendlier and more enticing for walkers and bicyclists and scooters and so forth. So, those do go hand in hand. I certainly think there'll be an opportunity to include Vision Zero, should that be our policy adopted by the council, along with, you know, vehicle miles traveled, which is basically the new way of benchmarking everything for environmental purposes and housing development and so forth.
Okay. Yeah, I mean, so I think, Carl, your point is a really good one, that whether it's called Vision Zero and what the actual content of the policy is, that it seems like it would be fair recommendation to the subcommittee, to the GPAC subcommittee, to possibly include a bullet point under the guiding principles values.
And yeah, that'd be sufficient just to raise the topic and ask them to do something, including it.
I wouldn't give it a name though. I wouldn't put Vision Zero on it. I mean, you're talking about
no
concept. I wouldn't, that would sort of limit it to expanding, contracting, whatever. I
agree.
Broader approach.
Okay. Does anyone have any suggested
Greg's got his hand up.
Yeah, so I don't know if I have any suggested words. I mean, I guess the two things that I think intersect most with our commission, that from my perspective, that I see in the vision and guiding principles are, you know, in the vision, safe. And I suppose that is meant to be read in a variety of contexts. But you know, when I think of safe in connection with the commission, it's, you know, safety for pedestrians, for bikers, for, you know, everyone, getting at what Carl's looking at. So that may be broad enough to encompass everything there. But I agree with, you know, endorse Carl's suggestion that in the principles, there should be something more to be cognizant of, you know, all types of people circulating, and you know, I don't know whether it's a new bullet or if it's incorporated into the sufficient infrastructure section, but you know, sort of all types of transportation and people getting around are important and need to be thought about and protected.
I love it.
Yeah, Lynn.
Yeah, yes, I like what Greg had to say. It concerns me when I hear people say that we're going to make something safe. I think we need to impress upon everyone that working with streets or near streets is not safe. It will never be safe. And they must always be on the lookout for their own safety. I think we make a huge mistake telling people that we're going to make something safe for them. Safer, yes. Safe, no.
Increase safety.
What did you say? I didn't hear what Vianney said. What did you say? Safe?
Increase safety.
I still didn't hear the first
He was adding to what you said about making it more safe.
Yes.
To increase.
Oh,
Increasing.
increasing,
Oh,
yes.
sorry about my accent.
Yes, increasing.
Yeah.
Yet making something safe, it's say that this is safe, or these are safe streets. They are not, they never will be.
Right. Now, just to say, that this is also a problem with the type of splitting up, where before it was just one line mission statement, now it's in 3 sections. The vision, what they're saying, that they want a vision of Lafayette as a safe place. That's the vision. So just to say that.
Yeah, and I think that some of that came from the survey where a lot of people had said public safety was important to them. A number of people also did say that pedestrian and bicycle routes were important to them. But I can definitely make a note for the subcommittee to ask them about kind of what is their intent with the word safe in the vision.
Well, it's a vision though. I mean, as long as it's a vision, I don't mind having it there, that it's a vision that it's safe. If we want to tell people it's safe, it's comparatively safe, safer than most communities are.
It's a desired future is the way it reads. So, yeah.
That's right.
So, okay. So earlier, Lynn had mentioned in the vision section, she would like it. Now this is the vision section, right? So she had mentioned open spaces language. The question is nearby is hills, parks, and creeks throughout as a vision of the desired state in the future. Is that sufficient, or is open spaces language something that the Transportation Commission thinks should be in there? Any thoughts on that?
We better. It's going to fill our roads to the point no one would be able to move if we fill all that stuff in with housing and buildings.
Let me ask you a different question. So open spaces, how does open spaces differ from what's listed as hills, parks, and creeks nearby?
They could be flat. Open spaces can. Hills, parks, and creeks aren't necessarily. I don't mind.
I think it's a good
spaces there.
I think it's a good point, Carl, because usually it's the term open space to refer to Briones or areas that are dedicated to be undeveloped.
So in other words, my point on that was, yeah, hills, you're right, Lynn, hills are hills. So the question is whether actually when I think of it, I'd say the word hills could be replaced by open spaces.
Could be open space.
Yeah, but
so that our ridge lines.
But yeah, but I directionally, I think the way they laid out a vision there is good. I don't know that it's that much of an impact on the Transportation Commission view, right?
I think it is. I think because what you don't feel, what you protect, you're not going to be stuffing with people and cars and transportation. If you fill all that acreage in with people, we've already got a problem, and we're going to have a devil of a time trying to accommodate the traffic here. We don't have the infrastructure to accommodate it, and we don't have any way to get the money to build the roads either.
All right, so let me offer a process suggestion. So it's 9:45, but we're not going to be voting on a revised statements. What we're doing is providing feedback to Stella to pass back, right? So why don't we kind of do this in a straw poll kind of manner? And we can just ask everybody, you feel like we should provide feedback to GPAC that the vision should include some reference to open spaces. Is that something that the transportation commissioners would like to direct?
I think we should be more specific. They don't need more vague. They're vague enough as it is.
So Lynn, looking at your email, which had the red additions and edits. And so it looks like I'm just going to read it to everyone because I don't think I can get it on the screen. But so your edit was to have visitors, comma, nestled within the beauty of nearby open spaces, hills, and ridgelines with parks and creeks throughout. So your suggestion is the addition of the description nestled within the beauty and the addition of ridgelines. Okay. So
Ridgelines with parks and creeks throughout. I don't mind that. They had that
or
something similar. So I was trying.
Yeah, they do say parks and creeks throughout. Yeah. So then your suggestions are to add ridgelines and nestled within the beauty of nearby open spaces. So
I should have put that other in black. I don't know what I was thinking.
Oh, it's okay.
Oh, so I'm still a little bit confused on how we make a decision. So on feedback,
just say I support
from as a body, as a transportation circulation body, you know, I kind of almost get back to what was mentioned earlier. It's almost like I know we can give feedback broadly on certain things, but I don't know that I want to go through all these individually.
It won't take very long.
Well, so let's just assume, okay. Well, let's have the other commissioners. What do you want? What do the other commissioners want this process to be, and how should we do this? Because I'm floundering here.
Can you get it on the screen, Stella?
Greg, you were saying?
Carl, I guess my preference would be, I mean, I'd like us to focus on the transportation and circulation aspects of it. You know, we all have the opportunity to provide feedback to GPAC and the subcommittee on all aspects of the process, but you know, I think we should be focused on just the transportation and circulation elements here.
But they're asking for our comments.
They're asking for our comments as a commission.
Right.
And also just for a point of clarification, are we taking public comment on this item?
Yeah, I was gonna get into that after we had our initial comments. So maybe we should do that first before we go through and look for agreement. Thank you for that reminder, Greg. Okay, so let's do this. Therese, I'm gonna open up this portion of this item for public comment. So if anybody would like to talk about potential recommendations to the draft mission vision statement, please raise your hand and we'll hear what you have to say.
The first speaker is Cheryl M.
Unmute.
There you go. Yes, I can hear you.
There's always one more step. I have to get away from my other device. Hang on.
Yeah, be cool.
All right. So my comment is that if you guys decide to add ridge lines, I support it because we have rolling hills throughout the city, but we want to protect our ridge lines. So if that is something you guys decide to do, then I support that as two different things. And then when I look at so far what I've seen on this screen, it feels like circulation and transportation isn't prioritized very much. So if there's something that you guys as a committee want to add as a bullet point that talks about how to keep public, not just safety, but I don't know, bring transportation involved in it. Like, and I'm not sure where I'm going with this. I'm hoping that maybe there'll be dialogue that'll help me lead that way. But looking at what's written here, it doesn't feel like there's a lot of comments that you guys can make, except for maybe to increase what's in there somehow. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay.
How about improving circulation and
Yeah,
transportation?
and what does improving circulation mean? Does it, and as I said, I'm just bringing it up because I'm noticing that as you guys are struggling to find things, maybe they're not there and they need to be added somehow. And I'm not thinking fast on my, and I don't know what to write there, but I'm definitely hoping that maybe there'll be dialogue with your expertise.
All right.
And that was it. It was just the ridge lines, and then seeing if we can add some stuff in there that talks about improving circulation or something. And those are my comments for tonight. Thank you.
Lynn has a question for you.
Okay.
Well, I'm wondering if it would tie in, and there isn't a tie-in, as you have all said. There isn't really in our vision, in our mission, in the guiding principles. Only in the goals do I see any reference to our infrastructure and getting around. And the first one said promote. And I took out, when I was doing this process, I took out all the promotes because that really essentially equates to lip service, promoting something. And so I substituted strive to develop. And all the additions I made there were strive for or strive because that does something and promoting doesn't. But the first one deals with infrastructure, and it says so it would read strive to develop infrastructure with funding mechanisms that support, and I scratched demands and put in needs, of current and future residents, housing, commercial, and retail development. That is the only, and it's only here in the goals where we see that. Now, should it be in the guiding principles and vision? And maybe it should, because it isn't here. And how, as Carl said, how do we, if so, how should we word it? And I am at a loss. I am not sure whether we should include adequate, because we don't stand a good chance of ever having good infrastructure and getting around, in other words, transportation. The chances are dim. So, but I don't know where to put it.
About improving mobility.
Okay, before we go too far though, okay, we've jumped to the goals page, which
and maybe that was my fault because I didn't go there on that page. Sorry.
No.
I don't think it's your fault.
Okay, wait. Let's.
If we could add somehow.
Hold on. Let's hold on. Process-wise, Cheryl. Thank you. I want to say thank you for your comments. Right. And we have another speaker that wants to speak. So before we go farther down that list of goals, we need to finish up with public comments. So any other questions on what Cheryl had to say? All right. Thank you for.
Just
thank you, Carl. Thank you, Commission.
Thank you.
Thank you, Cheryl.
Just we need to retain what Vianney said about improving mobility.
Okay, let's come back to that.
Next speaker is Abby Fateman.
Hi, good evening, Council. I was hoping actually to hear the rest of Stella's presentation on this before making comments. So I might have comments later, but maybe I'll just sort of give up for the night as well. You never know. But I guess my request is that that the Commission focus their comments specifically on transportation related and circulation related comments, and not extend to other things that you may or may not want to see in here. Just for the purposes of keeping this focused on this specific issue. So though I do agree with many of Lynn's comments that she made. There are others that I mean, I just feel like this isn't the place for it, that there are other venues for providing those comments. I do like the suggestion of adding something in the guiding principles about Vision Zero. And even if we don't use the term Vision Zero, the language of Vision Zero, which is creating spaces that, reduce collisions, death, and serious injury as people move through the community. And I don't know, that's not a nice thing to have in your mission vision statement, but it would be nice to spend some time thinking about that, not necessarily on this meeting right now in the middle of the night. I guess it's not quite the middle of the night yet, but I just want to, I want to acknowledge and appreciate the comment of about Vision Zero and the acknowledgement that vehicle miles travels goes hand in hand with Vision Zero when we look at getting people out of cars and what those goals are going to need to be as we look at how our community develops. So anyway, I look forward to hearing more of Stella's presentation if there is more of it. But my request is really to focus on the transportation related things. And I like Carl's suggestion of getting something in here about sort of this new language that we are using in the city.
Hold on. So Stella, I thought that from the materials that this was the last portion of what we're going to talk about. Is there something else coming up?
No, actually, that's
it. Okay, sorry.
This is it. No.
I just wanted
my hand through the whole document, so that's okay. Don't
I just wanted to
My
clarify
bad.
that. So thank you.
Thank
Abby.
you.
No, it's perfect, Abby. Perfect timing and great suggestions.
Yeah. So if I'll get to, hold on, Lynn, just 1 second. So if I can say, and I think we're done with Abby. Thank you. This type of vision mission statements are always high level, right? So then every farther down you go, there's guiding principles, and then there'll be another layer or two of how those are implemented. I don't know if that's the ordinance level or whatever. I have to go back and look at, as Stella talked about, the transportation section of the existing plan had a lot of detailed, actions on how to get there. So I'm kind of thinking that I'd like to limit really these edits or suggestions. I think that we could pass your entire email then onto the GPAC as a suggestion. But I think that the comments tonight are the vision section that includes as a goal, a desired future of it being safe. I think that we could say we'll have flow down on transportation issues. I think that's the way I'm looking at it. And then in the mission part of how we get there, I think it's not really explicit on the TCC portion, even though implied in it is when you're living and working, you've got to, and visiting and so forth, you're traveling in your circulation elements. I don't know that we need to call anything out on it, right? The guiding principles value to everyone, or as we talked about the Vision Zero, I'm not sure how to incorporate that, but I think that if we give the feedback to GPAC, that might be a place for them to include it, or something of that language, or in other words, the priority of what Vision Zero is all about. That would be useful, I think, feedback to her. Okay. In terms of the other edits, I don't know that it's worth our time to go through them all. If we're not going to go through them all and then do a vote, and I don't know that I have the capacity to do that tonight.
Sure, DeGiorgio, could I interrupt for a minute here?
Yeah, please.
First, I just want to make sure that we've exhausted all public speakers on this topic. I know we have had two.
Oh.
I don't know if there are any more.
Yes,
We're
thank you
still
for
in that
pointing out.
process.
There is. Thank you. I'm sorry. I failed to look over at the
No,
other
that's
screen.
okay. And then I also wanted to offer a suggestion, but maybe you could come back to me after we just confirm if we have other public speakers.
Yes, well, there is one more public speaker,
Yes.
Reese, if you don't mind.
Yes, David Clarke. I'll admit him as panelist.
Hello.
I'm not sure what I'm seeing here, but well, can you hear me?
I can hear you and I
Yes.
can see you.
Okay, well, I've got probably somebody's screen share. This is very quick, but Chair DeGiorgio, since I had the benefit of your prior comment before you recognize me, I completely agree with with what you just said. What I called in to say though specifically, because I hadn't heard it from anybody else, but the word infrastructure is in the goals. I think it's the last word of the third bullet point in, not the goals, excuse me, in the
Guiding principles.
yeah, exactly. So that word is on this page that we're looking at. I just thought I'd point that out.
The third bullet, yes.
Yeah.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Any questions for David on his comments? Thank you for pointing that out, David.
Of course. Thank you.
All right. Okay.
So Chair DeGiorgio, that public comment ties in exactly to what I was going to suggest or add, and maybe the commission can just take this as a jumping off point, or slam this suggestion or whatever you'd like to do. But it seems to me, as we look at vision, mission, and guiding principles, the transportation element of this is around infrastructure. And I would add, if, for example, and we also had comments, maybe we could include sort of a vision zero without saying vision zero. But you've got maintain a balance of environmental sustainability and sufficient infrastructure. Perhaps that could be lengthened to say something like that also protects circulation for all transportation modes. It's just something that's just kind of generic. The all transportation modes covers everything, and the vision zero thoughts. We're not just making safe streets, we're making safe bikeways, we're making safe walkways, we're protecting everyone as best we can. We're not calling them safe, Lynn. But something to that effect. So literally, I would just maybe suggest that also protects circulation for all transportation modes. And that ties in with sustainability and sufficient infrastructure. And I would suggest that's the logical place that you would add that out of looking at this page.
So, Mike, I generally agree with you, and I don't want to get too down into the weeds. And you're right. I think the concept is prioritize, for all types of people and modes. I would maybe, and Stella, if you want to push this point, I think safety, if we want to specifically call out safety, I think that would be important in a guiding principle, but I generally agree with the rest of what you've said.
Lynn?
Yeah, that's Mike said, and our gentleman speaker said what I was going to point out down there, the sufficient infrastructure. There's another part up here by vision that says uniquely livable community. And if we can't move the people who need to circulate, it's not going to be a livable community. So I think it's very important, but the GPAC did not, and staff did not ask for us to limit our comments to the transportation. They asked us for comments on the mission statement. And I don't know if they included the goals in that or not. I didn't write it down here.
In the staff report, we're specifically called out to just look at the goals, policy programs, and receive and file. But to the point that Mike passed on earlier, that's not finished, that you should be able to submit comments on the goals.
Yes, but I don't think we should limit ours. They're asking for, because we've been involved in the city, we have a great deal of experience. They're not, GPAC is not asking us to limit ourselves just to the transportation features of the general plan. They're asking for our comments on the overall picture of what they presented here, and we should give them that, I feel.
Well, that's true, but as a body, our focus is on transportation and circulation, isn't it? I mean, that's
most of the time, but that's not what they asked for. They asked for our comments on the mission statement and other stuff, whatever we got here.
okay.
And I think we should give that. I don't think we have to be stingy.
Okay. So I hear what you're saying. I just don't know that I want to go through. Well, let me ask the other two commissioners. I would propose that we include, by the way, thank you, Mike, for those comments. I think that is a really good way to work in kind of Vision Zero as a topic, and whether or not they follow that suggestion, I think that brings it up, you know, it raises the need for all modes to be part of our what we do as a city, right? Now, what do the other commissioners, should we go through these and talk about specific changes that you want to vote on, or should we just incorporate, say, my preference would be we give Stella all of these suggested changes and she just passes them on to the GPAC.
That would be my suggestion as well. You know, Stella, I think you've gotten the gist of at least where I think we need to comment on here. I mean, I certainly as a resident have other thoughts, and you know, I will submit comments separately, and Lynn, I'd encourage you to do so, but I don't feel the need to go through on every point.
I agree. We should focus on transportation, not
Yeah.
I
I think I think giving the, excuse me, sorry, Vianney. I think giving the GPAC committee the general feedback, but giving them the actual words, I would be acceptable. And then let them kind of do some more of the wordsmithing. That's been their whole world for a year now. But I think it's really an important point that multimodal safety is a concept or a theme that really should place with the guiding principles.
And
this
then,
is something that City Council would ultimately be deciding on, so they could change it at their discretion. The sense I have is that they're informed of those things well.
Earlier, Lynn mentioned that Vianney had mentioned the word mobility or talked about mobility. Is that captured in the phrase, if we were added circulation for all transportation modes? Lynn, do you think that would incorporate the the mobility aspect?
Say it again.
Earlier, you pointed out Vianney's comment about mobility, that we needed to capture that.
How did he put it?
Improving mobility.
Improving
right.
mobility.
And so I'm suggesting that in the text that kind of I heard Mike say, you know, adding to circulation for all transportation modes, I'm saying that I kind of feels like that's captured in that statement. So I'm just wondering, I'm bringing it up because you asked us to bring it back. So okay.
I think either one. Mike's is more specific, Vianney's is more general. It doesn't matter to me because they mean the same thing.
What about a combination, just improving mobility for all modes of travel?
Sure.
Doesn't matter.
Okay.
That sounds good.
It's going to be very difficult to do. We don't have the roads infrastructure to handle the amount of development being forced on us.
One step at a time.
Well, again, this is, where should we go? This is what it's about. So where should we go, and you know, how do we get there to be safe, and we live and work and get around.
Yeah.
So.
Or improving mobility and safe travel for all modes.
Just say improving travel. How about that? It's not improving safe travel.
She said mobility, I think.
Yeah. Improving mobility.
Travel.
Yeah, I said and safe travel, but that might not fit. But yeah, improving mobility for all modes of travel.
There you go. Yes.
I think, yeah, that's good.
Yes.
Okay, I like that.
It's not going to happen though.
Oh,
Of course.
But we can work towards that goal.
Yeah.
Exactly. That's part of
If
it.
we get jitneys up and down the street, maybe that would help.
Guiding
Yes.
principles. These are guiding principles. These are higher level things. We're still going to have to talk about execution, not a lower level later. But I'm saying I'm comfortable the way this is with the text that Stella just reiterated. I think that's great direction to the GPAC, and I personally feel that Lynn, you should we can ask Stella to include your letter with changes so that they can consider that in this. And then
Stella, would you send my letter off to the GPAC?
Yeah, absolutely. I will forward it to you. Yeah, I mean, you could certainly also send it, but I could package it with this, say that this was Commissioner Hidane's specific comments.
Right, that would be great. And then, yeah, I think that would basically, would cover our task for tonight.
Yeah.
And get rid of the, let's see, what were we supposed
Wait,
to?
on the goals, Lynn, I think they were adopted, but I think what you should do is, I think you should send that in to them. There's the GPAC address, and then also copy the city council and say that when this comes up, for their consideration, you had concerns about the goals, and let them, think about it.
Well, I mean, it doesn't do any good to say promote. What does that say? It's sloppy, very sloppy.
Well,
and go on forever like that.
well, no, I hear what you're saying, but I'm saying this is not the form. I suggest that my suggestion is that the wording around the goals, you send it to the GPAC address as well as the city council, and let them think about it when it comes up for their approval, because they're gonna. My understanding is they're going to go through all of this also.
That's right. And they're going to rework it.
All right.
A lot of this looks to me like sort of went over lightly. Right. Like they all sort of wanted to go to bed instead of doing it thoroughly.
I have to say I don't agree with that.
No,
there's been a big process, and these people have put a lot of time into this. Now,
yes, I worked hard for it.
It may not be the wording you like, but I don't think that it's been taken lightly. So, anyway, back to us.
This was a small committee, by the way, that did this. It wasn't the whole group.
That's right, and it's been under public comment, and it is also going to go to the city council for discussion.
There was two men on that committee, 2 men and a high school girl. Okay. I don't know how the division of labor was divided, but
right. So let's get back to in the agenda. We had the updates on the goals, that description was received and filed. We've done that. The second part was mission statement update, review and provide comments for GPAC consideration. And I think that we've accomplished that. So, I mean, there's not a need for a vote, but does anybody have other items that you think we should also pass on to the GPAC for this? Okay. Then I think it's a good discussion, and I think us starting to think about how to incorporate Vision Zero into the future changes is great, and so I think it was a good discussion. Yes. But if you're okay, I'd like to move on to the next section, commissioner and staff updates. So, Mike, why don't you go first, and then we'll talk to the commissioners for their input.
Yeah, and I do have one really. Staffing, I think I alluded to it earlier today. We have requested hiring staff augmentation, a traffic engineer, and with resources behind that from a I'll call it a medium-sized firm, if you will. And I hope to have that, immediately following that November 8th meeting. I'll follow up on that because literally I'm asking for the staff person that would staff this commission, in lieu of a traffic engineer or transportation planner that the city would like to have on staff. We're still doing a staffing evaluation. I expect in the future that we will have somebody on staff again, but it's going to be several months at least. So this contract is suggested to go through the end of the fiscal year, which is June 30th of 2022. So there's the update on that. An important update, and this, as you do know, the executive director of Contra Costa Transportation Authority, Mr. Hale, gave the Vision Zero update a couple meetings ago, earlier October. I know several of you heard it or listened to it. One of the points out of that was that there seemed to be favorable thought process to proceed with the Vision Zero policy. And one of the suggestions was to have a joint meeting between Transportation and Circulation Commission and the City Council. Staff has been asked to bring this back as soon as possible. And therefore we are attempting to bring a Vision Zero policy for consideration, and that would be November 22nd. And that would be as a joint meeting with this body, Trans-Circ, and the City Council for that item. So it'd be published as a joint meeting, November 22nd. I'm sorry I have this caveat, but I've been working with CCTA staff, and I think there was an impression following that presentation that here is a boilerplate policy that you can, just cater to Lafayette a little bit and just adopt. But it really isn't quite that far along and does need some specific critiquing for Lafayette. So I'm looking at that with CCTA staff, and I'll also ask some of our possibly even tool design who has some specialty in this area to also review that policy with us in consideration of Lafayette. But the hope is, because we have less than 2 weeks now, to get a draft policy in place, but that would come before the council and this commission as a joint meeting November 22nd.
Lynn?
Yeah, the joint, a policy for what?
Vision Zero.
Do all cities have to do this?
If you're adopting a Vision Zero and you want to pursue that, it basically is a commitment to pursue Vision Zero goals and implementation.
And do we have a list of the goals and implementation?
You don't. What you will get is the policy will essentially, it'll be like a resolution. So you'll read the things in the resolution, and you'll say, I either agree with those things or I disagree with those things, or I agree mostly, but I would add this or take away this. That would be the intent of that. So it would be, you would get a packet with this draft policy that's consideration for adoption. It could also be commented on, staff given direction to, update it and edit it and bring it back. But the request is to bring it to the City Council while the momentum is still there and soon. So we're going to try and do that November 22nd.
Would we be required to do anything with regard to that policy? Could we be sued for not pursuing some portion of that policy?
I think those are very good discussion topics. I personally do have some concerns on maybe what the policy would say or not say.
So if I can ask a clarifying question. So this would be an item where it's kind of setting the overall direction for the city is the city should adopt a Vision Zero approach or something, some wording right in a resolution. But it's not going to get into any of the specifics of how that's going to be implemented or anything of that nature. It's only a policy direction. Is that right?
So that is right. And that will be played out with that local roadway safety plan and some follow-up from that. So the more specifics will come out. This is the general vision, right? Literally.
We wouldn't take part or sign a vision without knowing what the roadway plan is, would we?
So it doesn't talk about a specific plan, Lynn. It just talks about doing everything you can to reduce severe injury or death to really any user of Lafayette streets and sidewalks and walkways and open spaces. And so that's literally what the policy is about.
The city lawyer should get involved, right?
I think so. I agree with Danny.
For what reason?
Oh, because they have the legal background.
Well, again, this is a policy direct. I mean, this is the city council setting a policy direction, not specific action items, right? Okay, but maybe that's a good question. Maybe that's something to raise.
We don't know what this would mean if we said.
I think what would be useful, and I haven't done this, but I think that's right, is what's the process that other cities have gone through in adopting Vision Zero, and I can't speak to that. I know that there's going to be a lot of people will weigh in on that in the community. But that's a good point.
Just to note that the Contra Costa County, the transportation guide that they referenced, and it's available online, sort of gives the roadmap for implementing Vision Zero and talks about the policy statement. And it is just sort of the overall overarching goals. And that was what was discussed and encouraged at the city council meeting, a few weeks back.
Right.
So
all I can say is I'm excited that the city is discussing and will hopefully take that as a major policy step. And so I personally look forward to the opportunity to meet with the city council on the 22nd, if that comes to fruition, or if it all comes together. So, okay. Sorry, Mike. So what other updates do you have for us?
No, that's all I have. TARs and all that is essentially on hold, except for what I've been trying to do to get us prepared for these, walkarounds at school, site visits, and so forth. So really, it's just been gearing up staffing so that we can start business as usual again. So that's all I have.
I have a call for commissioners. Greg?
Yeah, I have both a comment and a question. The comment is I noted that the governor signed 3 or 4 weeks ago AB 43, which gives more leeway to cities, local entities, and DOT to reduce speed limits, and it affects that one statute that we talked about previously, though not specifically that the one that we purportedly took action under. So, Mike, you're shaking your head. I'm sure you're familiar with it, but it does give a number of additional options for reducing speed limits in various areas.
You have the list?
I can send it. It's Assembly Bill 43. We can send it around. But then that leads me to my question, Mike, as to, we did make the recommendation 4 weeks ago to, reduce speed limits around schools, sort of wherever possible, I guess. And just wanted to know, sort of where we are with vetting that with city attorney council, and then the road to city council.
Yeah, and I think that in both cases that it should come out of these site-wide, the school walkarounds. I mean, it should be part of the quick builds, because part of the quick builds will be, if we can adopt this, for example, posting 15-mile-per-hour signs through these zones where we can. And when we go school by school, we can literally look at with some transportation expertise with us, which streets adjacent to these schools or within the 500 feet would be, basically we could map it, would be applicable to posting these lower speed limits.
Okay, all right, well, I guess, I mean, that's an added, I guess, task for these meetings. You know, what I had heard from council is that they were ready to move on that as an initial step, kind of regardless, but.
No, that's true, but then which streets are we going to put them on? Because we haven't looked at that. Nobody's done that work. Staff hasn't been available to do it because I haven't had any. So this is the first opportunity, if you will, to say, yes, we're going to put it here on School Street and here on Happy Valley Road from here to here, and here on Spring Hill from here to here. So, I mean, there's the general adoption of a resolution, if you will, but then there's the specific implementation. And personally, I believe those should just go together because it's not going to get done any sooner than that. And this is the opportunity to wrap that all together.
Is Moraga Road ruled out from that as we were studying?
I believe it is, but we'll look at it more specifically. I want more expertise to weigh in on that, because if I can be overridden, I'd like to be. Yeah,
I think the new law may permit it, but again, not my area of expertise.
Yeah, it may permit it based on the speed, but it may not permit it based on the number of lanes, unless we change the number of lanes on Moraga Road.
Oh boy.
Still, do you have input on this?
Yeah, just a small thing. So I know at our last meeting when we discussed this, Greg had mentioned some of the statute might indicate that it does not require an engineering and traffic survey.
Right.
And I was looking around and researching that and came across the AB 43, and basically conveniently maybe on the California LegInfo site where they published the statute, there's a legislative council's digest for AB 43, and it's pretty clear. It says under point 4, existing law authorizes a local authority without an engineering and traffic survey to declare a lowered speed limit on portions of highway as specified approaching a school building or school grounds. Existing law limits this authority to sections of highway meeting specified requirements relating to the number of lanes and the speed limit of the highway before the school zone. So that was kind of useful to know conclusively, I think, according to the Legislative Council, that's their interpretation of the law. But it does, I mean, this is really interesting kind of description, and I can certainly send it to Therese for the rest of the commission to take a look at, but it does also get into what AB 43 includes, which is similar. It says it would similarly authorize a lowered speed limit on a section of highway contiguous to a business activity district as defined. So some of Moraga Boulevard or Moraga Road certainly could be considered business activity district. So the expansion opportunities are definitely there. One thing that I did notice when I was reading through this is that there's a deadline, I guess, for implementation that maybe no later than June 30, 2024.
I wonder why, how odd. Huh?
So, well, it has to do with, I guess, an online tool that would be in place for handling violations, I think. So the law requires the Judicial Council to create and implement an online tool by that date. So whether they do it earlier, who knows? But so some of the provisions may be not able to be implemented right away. But anyway, I didn't want to sidetrack. I just wanted to say the engineering and traffic survey part of it.
Question.
Yeah,
Question for Mike. Are we paying Tool already? In other words, could we send the material that Stella has found to Tool and then ask them if this applies to Moraga Road and could the city council act on it when they have their next meeting, this meeting that's coming up. That's a question.
So the city, I am not going to have anything prepared for the city council at the next meeting. I'm sorry, I have to be honest and clear with everybody. My thought was the soonest it was going to get to the city council was following our transportation walks at the schools. And I would like to kill two birds with one stone and literally map out where we would do this, because we already have recommendations from this commission that we want to enact this, right? And I would say that AB 43 is a welcome addition. It's been a long time coming because people have been stronghold. Our speed limits have gradually risen because of the law on how we have to set them over the years with this 85th percentile. And basically it's just based on how people drive, not how they should drive. So
yeah, very good.
I think this is a welcome addition, and it actually does help you. I mean, Stella, you just read something. I had a concern with the number of lanes, right? And now you just read that it's essentially overriding that. So yes, Tool can look at this. They are already on retainer, so to speak. I mean, they do have a scope and a focus and a budget, but this falls within that scope and that budget. Specifically, this is safety around schools. This is their module 2, if you were to read their proposal, and it will be part of it. And whether that's 2 meetings from now or 3 meetings from now or 4 meetings from now, I can't tell you. I think we need to get to work, and I haven't been able to do that until following the 8th, when I get some staff to help support you better than I've been able to do. And when Tool actually gets to looking at these things and working with that other staff other than just me.
Other announcements or anything else to share?
Yes, I have a question for Mike. Is there any talks of removing that lane that avoids to go through the roundabout so that it goes from going south on Pleasant Hill Road onto Olympic West, where Joe was killed?
So Chair DeGiorgio and I and the mayor and the vice mayor had a 2-hour meeting this morning at the roundabout. There are talks of adding some features that may improve safety for pedestrians and bicyclists. One of the considerations would be not having that trap lane. It's more likely on one of the two because there is likely capacity issues on one of them that would require having that trap lane. But even on that one, there are perhaps some things we can do. I have a separate consultant looking at that specific issue. It's Kimley Horn. They have some expertise with roundabouts. It hasn't been forgotten. They're supposed to get basically a preliminary proposal plan, maybe 50% plan, if you will, for comments within about 3 weeks from now.
I see. I have had 2 very close calls where my captain, I'm on the tandem, we had to yell bloody murder because they don't pay attention. They think it's all clear. And the merging area is very, very short. So,
right.
Yeah.
So we are looking at that. Like I said, we were part of a meeting this morning about that very issue.
I just want to add to that Deani, I totally agree that there are opportunities to improve the design and striping. The consultants that were there this morning, as well as some members of the public that are bicycle advocates, had really good discussion, and I was impressed with the consultants from Kimley Horn that they're going to come back and help make some adjustments to that roundabout to make it safer.
Okay. Yeah.
So that was one of the things I was going to mention was the meeting this morning. So thank you for that. I want to.
Was the public invited?
This was, well, it's a follow-up to a meeting several months ago. So it's not a public notice because it really wasn't a quorum of anything. So it was really designed around getting the consultants going on the project. So
thank you.
The last thing I want to just mention before we close, two things. First, I want to say thank you to everybody for all their thoughts, both on the materials tonight and everything else. Thanks for the public input. And just a reminder to everybody, we're going to get materials to Mike by this Friday, and copy me on anything that you send out. I will reach out to Vianney and to Lynn for assistance on some of that. So
thank you.
If there's nothing else.
Well, I have a funny question to ask Mike.
Okay.
Those road signs at Litz with the different messages, isn't it called a silent radio? Or you never heard it?
Perhaps. We usually call them changeable message sign, but so.
In advertising, it's called a silent radio. So that's why.
That makes sense. Yeah.
Yeah. Okay.
Anyway, that was just for fun.
All right. Well, thank you, everybody.
Thank you.
I'm going to adjourn this meeting. It's 10:37 p.m. Thanks for all your help, and we'll be talking.
Yes, that's safe.
Bye-bye.
Bye.
Good night.
Night.